know why I'm ranting about this, but like I don't understand these people.
Because we're the TMZ. People like watching us.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but also we're on this show. Yeah, okay, fair enough. You know what? As much as I like to.
He's got 850 health.
Yeah, you can't kill him.
you gotta focus on everybody else that's trying to get into the site.
We do not care. Hey, your staff. Just get the f off Twitter and go figure it out. Shut up. They were supposed to be paid months ago. Another month PM means nothing to me.
Louder for the people in the back.
He's not trying to be sneaky. He's proud of where he lives. Look at that. Right there. The Mexican flag, 22. Smile. Like, any amount of research would have shown
Enhance. Enhance. Enhance more. Enhance. Yeah, I mean, you were in rehab for like 8 years, so we get it. You know? It takes a while for people to bounce back. I mean, I'm glad you made it back, fans. Really am. Let's talk about what we got on the show today. Obviously, it's like a bit of a lull week, right? Because we don't have. Well, VCT's just kicking off today in Europe, just like the open portion of the bracket. So there's tons of games to be played. But first of all, we're going to talk about KO. He's actually been played, and he's eligible to be played in VCT Korea. So we're going to be bringing on a special guest to help us pass through what we're seeing from KO gameplay so far in that region. Then we're going to talk about an interesting snafu, I guess, with well-known player Decop, who was an Overwatch player before he became a Valorant player, and the PAX Arena, and just some. It was just a weird situation. We're gonna work our way through it because even I don't quite understand it. That's why I've got these two experts on the show. We're also going to talk about a ton of the roster moves that are happening because obviously we're in between VCT sort of challenges stages. So, you know, we often get a lot of these roster changes. We want to talk through some of the big ones and sort of discuss what it means for the respective teams. And then we can talk about what Vance has been up to, which is the Red Bull campus clutch happening over in Spain. It seems so odd to have like a collegiate tournament in Europe because they're like university. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's not the same vibe as like American collegiate stuff. I would always have thought it would happen in North America, but I digress. Yeah. Let's crack on. We're going to welcome to the show, returning to the show, a good friend of ours, Paperthinhere, obviously covering VCT Korea. Clinton, thanks for coming on the show, man. Good to have you back.
Yeah, great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me back. It's been a lot of fun covering stage 3 now. We're getting into the real meat of it. We're past our like seeding round into the round of 16. So things are really heating up. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I mean, for those that have been able to catch the action, good on you. We are covering we are coming to you from 3 different continents on this show right now, which is quite impressive.
All around the world.
In and of itself. Yeah. Paperthinhere, before we get talking about sort of maybe specifically what we're seeing, give us a little bit of overview of who's sort of on the rise in sort of Korean VCT, who's performing as expected, who's underperforming. Like, what's your synopsis right now in the scene?
Yeah, I think definitely coming into this with Lakia moving over to the Vision Strikers, which is, you know, what I'm sporting today, it felt like that they were maybe going to just run away with this thing. But, they've been good, but they haven't been amazing outside of, you know, somebody randomly deciding to try to challenge them on Icebox, which was just not a good idea because that team lost 13-0. But, 13-0, you know, yeah, so, I mean, they've been kind of shaky, particularly on Ascent. So I'm kind of curious to see how this all going to work. Lakia has been okay, but not great for them. New Turn, similar kind of story. They're good, but not great. They got pushed by a team called DFR, which has this unreal jet player called Hyunhee, who put up a 449 ACS against them on Bind, which is widely considered to be their best map in Korea. I mean, we saw them not do so great. I think they did okay on it at Reykjavik, but it hasn't been their strongest map. So New Turn kind of shaky with moving 10X over into Lakia's role. The good news is their Icebox looks good. 10X looks good on Reyna. For the rest of Korea, some teams to watch. TNL, the former sister team of Vision Strikers, what they used to be called Quantum Strikers. They look really, really good right now. They look super in form. Teams are having a very tough time against them. Their play calling looks excellent. So TS has really improved in that aspect. And F4Q, the team that was the first ones to ever defeat the Vision Strikers, looks really, really solid. They have brought in some great players now. Afina's shot calling for them, kind of as the Sentinel player as well. And it's like a really interesting team with, Bunny and 5K being allowed to just constantly play Reyna and Raze only. That's all they play basically, and just like run roughshod all over the other teams, and then the other players just sit in the back and just kind of let them do their thing. So some really exciting, interesting stuff going on.
So obviously, this is the first region where we're seeing KO play happening at all. We've been speculating a ton in the weeks leading up. What does KO replace? How do you build around him? Let's talk a little bit about, I guess, how players have been using KO as individuals, first of all, right? Because we know that he has a pretty well fleshed out kit, right? The flash is really quite powerful to start with. What are we sort of seeing from KO at an individual level?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of kind of sort of like a Sky Sova role, like a very limited with the knife. Like a lot of what the knife is being used for is information gathering more than the suppression. The suppression's important. And then of course the blinds, and then his ultimate for entries. Those are really where he seems to get a lot done. You can see here, Lakia from Vision Strikers having a really tough time against this ultimate from Nakji, along with King in the back. They get completely pushed. Like this really shuts down particularly Sova's and Killjoy's and Cypher's. Like you have a really tough time using your utility against it. The Owl Drone gets knocked out by the suppression. You can't even use it. All of Cypher's utility gets taken out. Everything but the lockdown for Killjoy gets taken out. So you just have no answers other than you just got to hold angles and outshoot your opponents.
I want to
popped
on
off
to this.
there, right? And just rushed side a KO.
Yeah, they'll just rush it. I mean, it's so hard to defend against.
Yeah, and sorry to cut you guys as well. I just want to add as well, because I saw a bit of KO actually during the Red Bull Campus Clutch, and funny enough, it was actually a Korean team that used KO, which was Mamacita from the team in Korea, which was Vacuum Chi. And what I actually did like about KO was that he used his knife, which is called 0 Point, to actually cancel out ultimates. So there were maybe 2 times where Raze was going to go for a satchel charge showstopper entry, whether it's on defense or offense, but Mamacita knows where it's coming from, throws the knife, and it suppresses the players for like 8 seconds, which means it doesn't cancel out the ult, but you can't use it for 8 seconds. So by the time he comes back, you can't even use it anymore. And he's used it once on, I think, a Jet Blade Storm and also a Sova Hunter's Fury, which means that takes out everything. So in terms of
the duration expires, right?
Exactly.
While you're
exactly. So if you're actually a pretty good KO and have the game sense of where it's coming from, and knowing that the knife point, or sorry, the 0 Point is the same distance as a double recon dart, right? For Sova, you could do some crazy lineups to actually cancel out even Sova ults from spawn side and stuff like that too, to help you with the entry. So the knife is like super strong for that too. But I do agree with Paperthin with the rest of the kit. It's like, it seems as though the null command is probably going to be the one that's going to be doing the most in terms of like suppression on entries. And the fact that he gets taken down, it was very rare that he was getting revived, but he was basically a sag for camera while he was on the ground, being able to call all those positions for his teammates of where the rotations are, where the enemies are hiding inside the sites. So I think it's still pretty good in terms of a kit, but it still needs time to get developed right now with the rest of the teams.
I mean, just the threat of being able to revive him means that, like, you have to basically treat him as if he was still an enemy, because you can't just ignore him unless someone just turn up. Is there a sound cue given to the enemy team if you're reviving KO?
Yeah,
there is. There is. So it's and it's still difficult, right? It takes time. It makes the I guess it makes the person reviving KO not intangible, but like he or she can't do anything. So
can you tap it like a spike diffuser and bait with it?
I'm not sure.
I think that you can actually. I think that you can.
Ooh,
so there's a time. There's a timer on that too, right? So there's a timer when he's getting res too. So I'm pretty sure you could let go of it. And the fact that like when he's on the ground, you also don't focus on him anyways, because he's got 850 fucking health.
Yeah, you can't kill him.
you got to focus on everybody else that's trying to get into the site through an execution of a null command. So you definitely have to focus on the rest of the strat before you try to take down KO. And it's kind of like one of those things that if you kill everybody from the rest of the team, like we saw in the examples here, then KO is just going to disappear anyways. So.
Yeah, I mean we saw that clip just now. Bloke around the corner gets res and then gets 3 kills. So there are, I guess, especially if you lose him early round, you lose him in a position where you actually have someone covering the angle. You either use the debate or use it to get a free player back, which is kind of insane.
Yep.
So who then is he replacing? So from what can we glean from the way he's being used in terms of what players think he's the closest allegory to? Like, is he being used instead of Sky or instead of a duelist? You know, what is the sort of equivalence here for, you know, bringing a KO into your comp? Who goes out?
Yeah, I think that he's most synonymous with like duelist players. I think KO is probably going to be the death of double duelist comps. Like, they've been on the downslide for a while, but I think this is almost like the last nail in the coffin. A lot of duelist players are starting to pick him up. I know I've watched some of like the tier 2 events in NA where he's being played, and most people are rocking with like a solo jet, that KO, and normally like a double controller and either a Sova or a Sky, because I think double initiator, double controller is kind of where it's at right now. Like, even like some people that have been like hardline duelist players like their whole life in Valorant are switching over. Like, I know Screwface on Dark Zero now, he's starting to play KO for that team instead. Like, I think that he has this toolkit where you can get really nerdy with it, right? You can have all those lineups, you can play it like the Sova, but it's also just like at its root, like his Molly and his flashes are just like a very basic kit for those entries, because I think he's one of those versatile agents, because you can be a very, very selfish KO very easily, but you can also set your team up for so much success. I think when I first saw his ult too, like, I thought it was almost going to be like kind of similarly used to a run it back, but it doesn't have to be, because like the pulse is on the null command. It's the size of the spike radius. So you can like hit people across the map. You can shut down post plants really easily. You don't even have to be pushing. You can just chill out in your little corner and still find that impact.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
mental.
mental.
Yeah.
It's huge.
So it just fucking turns off all the Viper shit. You don't have to body block snake bites anymore. You kidding me? You just fucking sit there, bro.
Yeah,
it's like a trophy system. Oh my god, that's okay. So I can kind of see why. I mean, he feels like a duelist. Sorry, like you know, I hate to say it, he gets his gun up quick after the flash. His ultimate allows him to just level the playing field. So even if he's going up against a duelist, for example, that maybe has abilities that can skew fights in their favor, like let's say like I don't know, a Jet or a Raze or something like that, he turns him off. So he fucking, you know, he establishes an even playing field. Oh, let's not mention the fact that he can still use any of his abilities during that time. But who then? Who are we seeing him combo with? You know, like is it like the Jets going in with the KO? Like they just, the two of them just like blow a side up? Like how is that? What are the synergies, I guess, instead of talking about who he's replacing now?
Go ahead, Clint. You can go first, and I could add on to that.
I mean, I think Jets are definitely a natural combo behind him. He can set up a lot of plays, like with that 0 point, whether that just being getting information on who's where, or just shutting down the abilities of anybody to do anything except just outduel your Jet player. And that's not going to happen a lot, because your Jet player is the person that you're relying on to be, your top fragger, your ace in the situation. So definitely you could see a lot of that. I think you could combo with a lot of different stuff. It's just really, really powerful. Anybody who has flashes, he's just as good, if not better. I mean, he might have the best flashes in the game, right? You have to be really careful when you underhand those flashes. They go a lot shorter than you think, but I found that out the hard way a couple times playing him myself. But like but he has a very kind of traditional flash where it's a grenade, it bounces off walls. He has a frag that has the same throwing mechanic as the Nano Swarm, essentially. It's actually the same model. It just looks different and acts a little bit different. So you can kind of, be pretty accustomed to it in that sense. I think like Raze's Jets can combo off it well. Just the rest of your team, really a lot of times he's leading the way. We saw this with Han on WGS, where he used to play Yoru. He was one of the few people who actually gave it a go in Korea. And frankly, this KO just suits him much better. It suits that role much better than Yoru does. He has a flash, he has a frag, his ult is kind of better in a lot of ways too than the dimensional drift. So I think really it's just anything that follows behind him can be pretty powerful. He can shut down stuff like contestage for ult orbs with the 0 point. Like you can, like on, for example, on Ascent on B, where the ult orb is up on that box. A lot of times Sovas will sit right on the other side of that, right? Sometimes with an Odin or whatever, but early rounds in particular, they'll take their arrows out and be flinging it up at that window, just bouncing it straight down, right? You could just shut that down by throwing the knife at the wall, because just his ult, it goes to the wall. Yeah, and you get the info. And you know what agents are there, because it tells you. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even more so the guiding light. It doesn't just tell if someone got flashed. You know exactly who's at a certain site. Which
you know who it is. You just don't wear. You have an idea maybe at that point too. But I definitely do think that he's going to replace a duelist at this point. Like even that example that we saw, that Jet that did that ace. Maybe KO in terms of how he threw that 0 point didn't really catch anybody, but you saw where he threw it and the position of where defenders are kind of playing towards that door or towards tree. You get suppressed by that, and if it's a killjoy, for example, well, all those abilities that is already gone, right? So I think he's going to be able to support Jet, and he's also going to be able to be that second duelist, as Mimi was saying before.
And it's not like you can even really hide from it. Like, so if you just spam it onto a site, no one can be in the circle. With a Silver Dart, someone could have done something sneaky in a smoke. With even a Sky Flash, they could have just turned enough to not see it. But even that absence of information is still a huge amount of information with KO, and with how big that radius is, like it's so much on site executes. Like I also think like Sentinels have been on the decline. I think this is kind of the final nail in the coffin for a lot of people that were previously playing Cypher or Killjoy, because on that defensive side, it's just so hard to find impact when you can just lob one piece of utility that's like almost impossible to counter if they have the right lineup, and like your whole kit's just done so.
Just think about these Breeze comps we're getting. We're getting like Sova and Sky on Breeze a fair bit. Yeah. I mean, like KO in that mix as well. You have like your ability to gain information and not have to peek long angles like in a dangerous manner is just insane, right?
Yeah.
You actually have that Sova and KO combined there. I think that's pretty scary. Again, we don't know if there'll be a sort of
the death of Sentinels. That means I have to try fucking learn a new agent again, right?
Yeah,
so,
Killjoy's just
I'm just gonna get a Killjoy. Stop! I want to keep playing it.
Nah. Yeah, I mean, Ratomic in the chat is saying, he's been playing Killjoy and KO just fucks their life up. So it'd be like that. Okay, so let's do it. Let's do a little thought exercise, fam, if you will. What teams stand to benefit the most from KO? Let's say in North America, for example, because Mitch, we don't have him today, but we'll talk about it later as well. But I know TSM likes to have a lot of duelists, and hey, they can have a duelist without him being called a duelist if they just throw KO into their comps.
Yep. Like that, and then another like Sky where Sabrosa could play like a duelist too. I think it's just gonna be like duelist initiators again with TSM.
I believe also like
I still have the copium.
I don't know about that one, but I think that it's also good for teams that are like pulling new players to the game. Like people that are just hopping over from CS. I think about like people like Zeppa, Floppy, or even Ethan, who kind of got like plugged into that Omen because he's really easy to put up. But I feel like he has such an intuitive kit, right? Like if you just have someone who's like a pug star in CS who loves just like pop flashing through smoke, getting that stuff done, you can do all that, and then the learning curve with the knife isn't that bad. You don't have to worry about charge. You don't have to worry about bounces. It's just stand here, aim here, and you have yourself a knife lineup. Like I feel like he's in terms of like the amount of work that you have to put in, not to say that like people aren't going to put in work, but like I guess intuitiveness to the impact you can find from him is really big. So I think that the teams like that kind of enjoy that, I guess, a bit of a simpler style and love just getting aggressive, flashing through smokes like that. Like he just has such a depth to him, and it's gonna be exciting.
Do you guys think that this is in any way a response from Riot to the post-plant meta that we had? Because like it's a bit rich to say that they started the dev process for an agent just because of this meta, and then they managed to punch him out in that period of time. But I tend to know that like for developers, they have multiple concepts and like mostly fleshed out designs for characters on the back burner anyway. And there's like a lot that like I know, like for example, I dev in like let's just say an arena shooter may have like 5 concepts for for agents ready to ship, and they could just flesh them out and get them pushed within like a couple months. Do you think this is Riot actually trying to influence the way the game is played by taking some of the power away for these post-plant setups?
Yeah, I think
I
agree.
Yeah. I said sorry, Clay. I'll start off and say I agree, but I also agree that they're doing this, but not in a lazy way, if I can permit myself to say that. Because what I mean is, for example, when we're talking about the post-plant meta, or just like the suppressing meta with Astra, for example, right? When her gravity well was starting to like being able to suck in people off the spike and stuff like that too. It's like, well, fuck, what can we do now? Because we have agents that are a little bit too powerful right now with the post-plant meta with Viper and Astra. Should we just lazily put an agent out and then do a 0 point and a null command to cancel all that shit when they're close by. I don't think it was a lazy way to make the fix, but I just think it's an intriguing way to like just test out how you could really directly try to counter the meta right away without being too big brain about it and having to like spend so much server time to figure out how you defeat a post fight meta.
Yeah, and I think to tack on to what he's saying, because I'm right there with Fancilly, I think also there was some concern with utility spam in general, which we saw with this most recent patch, right, where they made it much more expensive, much more difficult to just, constantly buy all your utility and throw it out all over the place, particularly with Astra coming through. Like, all those smokes created a lot of confusion, a lot of congestion. This answers a lot of that, not necessarily to Astra directly, but a lot of the other characters. Also, I think people initially had worries that, or at least complaints that the Sentinels were a little too annoying to deal with playing just in pug games and stuff. And this gives you a great answer to it, like Kat was talking about earlier, that he really shuts down Sentinel players.
I want to make it. Yeah, I like it. Like, don't get me wrong. I think it's interesting because to use in my experience in Overwatch as an example, I know that Sombra as a hero, for those that don't know in Overwatch, she turns off abilities as well. She was introduced at a time where a lot of this bullshit was happening in Overwatch as well. Like a lot of just like full combos, like absolute like looks like a spaghetti soup of like particle effects and stuff like that. And she was able to sort of take a bit of strength away from that. There's nothing. It's not lazy, by the way, to introduce. Like, they're actually, if you're actively trying to curate the experience and to some degree the meta game, I'm fine with that. Also, I think a direction moving away from convolution is always the right direction, right? As opposed to going towards it. And I think that this will discourage teams from trying to load up too heavily in all this post-plant bullshit and encourage them to actually think about how to proactively deal with KO, or proactively deal with being, an attacking team by pushing instead of just trying to set up all this architecture and then fuck off. You know what I mean? We don't need that kind of play style. I think in Valorant, it never really felt quite right for the game. So, it felt more like a Rainbow Six Siege kind of thing, right? Everyone's got a fucking little RC cars and all this sort of stuff, but it didn't really feel like it suited the pace of Valorant as much. I mean, I don't know. I'm curious to see. We're going to get that in the next few days, right? Because EU's kicked off. We're going to see who picks up KO there as well. But it definitely feels like a shift towards a bit more of a fundamental game where maybe, gunplay is actually first. And, because I think that the devs' intentions were subverted slightly, and because of all this fun, cool stuff. But it could have just been like, maybe they released too many agents with these, like, these deployables at once, and this is move back to a little bit more of the purest way of playing attack shooter. I'm okay with that direction. Again, and you know what, guys, they can bring back in some more bullshit after. Like, someone can make an electric fence for all I care, but KO's still in the game right now, so it's not going to be as oppressive purely on virtue of the other options that people have to play, right? But you can do that now.
I mean, I think that post plan to an extent is still viable. Like you can still run a post plan comp.
Oh yeah.
It's just there's a risk reward to it now. Like before, it was almost impossible unless you had some really nerdy stuff to counter it out. Now there's just an easier counter. You can still 100% run Viper. I mean, I think Astra got nerfed, but Astra is still viable. I think we will still see some teams run that AV comp, but now there's just some counterplay to it. Now there's something else you can do to shut it down. And this is part of the reason why I'd love at some point, once we get more agents, almost having like a pick ban phase, or I don't know what they call it in League, like a draft or something, because you can really get that kind of counterplay stuff going, which I think is really fun, and I think this develops into maybe that future goal a little bit.
Mimi brings up a great point right now too, because even looking at how it is right now, is that, as she mentions, the post-plat meta is still viable. A KO meta could be viable. Now that Omen has his paranoia back at 300, you see an Omen in double duelist coming back as well. So what's cool right now, at least from what I've been seeing in North America, is that you now have choices. There's not necessarily like just a post-plat meta that's going to be able to win the games. Now you can play your playstyle to how you really want it. And that debate once again to say, okay, it's not only about the regions. Now it's trying to figure out which meta is going to be that big meta once again, So I like that it's starting to bring that back, and you're seeing these options being available for
you. Yeah, so I know we got a discussion happening in chat, and obviously sometimes it feels like KO is more about shutting other people down than doing stuff himself. His util is decent, but I suppose it's not nearly as sophisticated as the util he's designed to shut down. So I think that's kind of going to be part and parcel of his experience. You know, playing him. The flashes are not as strong as some people were initially conjecturing. So yeah, we'll see. I think. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we need something that just you throw it up into the air and it's like a solar eclipse. It just flashes the whole fucking map. At the same time.
I could tell the players were struggling with it a little in Korea. It took them a little while to kind of get the feel of them and find the right places to put them, find the right situations to use them. Particularly with Gochugaru against Vision Strikers, it took them about 2/3 of a Haven before they finally figured out how to really use his flashes properly. So I mean, I think there is still some experimentation, but I think again, going back to what Kat said, my initial thought with him as well was he fits right in for, you know, old tac shooter players because of the way that flash works. Is very similar to the way flashes have worked previously in other games.
All right, so we'll crack on here with the show. I think we've set expectations at least for what to expect for KO. I think we have pretty moderate expectations, especially we're seeing players in South Korea still struggle to really get a ton of value out of them. Paperthinhere, thanks so much for coming on the show and helping us pass out our first sort of glimpses of KO, man. Good luck with the rest of the VCT happening over in Korea, man.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks,
no worries.
Thanks, man.
Always a pleasure to have our friend Paperthinhere on the cast. Let's move on to we're revisiting this topic every week now. I think because we kind of reported, we didn't report on it first. It was a thing, but because we got involved and we discussed it and fleshed this out, to a degree we have a responsibility to continue to try and add our weight into sort of maintaining accountability, but B, also updating people who don't want to go through a bunch of brain dead tweets. So here we are. Let's talk about the SpikeGG situation here, because obviously, I think we saw this sort of last week. Artur obviously tweeted that, we've signed the term sheet to sell the Spike. Now, I'm not a business person, so I don't necessarily know what signing a term sheet means, as opposed to, signing a sale contract. I don't know about you guys, but
nope.
Crucially, he has no equity, which is, I think he did say that he would be, he would be divesting entirely from his ownership in the site. But and it says that the payments due to the contractors will be paid by the new owners. So that obviously means that Artur essentially is not going to be paying them. It also passes the buck a little bit. Is it reasonable to say that? Like, it's just
like clean slate, pass it on to somebody else, and when you sell it, then they have the responsibility of paying it. And that's what my assumption is as to like the term sheet is like, if I'm selling this to you, this is what I owe to certain people. Can you take care of this while we make the deal? So I think maybe sometimes that could be the harder reason why is it was more difficult for him to sell the SpikeGG, because he's in debt and then he had to pay a lot of people. So it takes a lot of convincing to be able to have people to sign that and get through, and then have people paid, and then finally have the Spike generate some fucking revenue.
Right. Okay. So Scoot's in the chat. Thanks, Daddy Scott. The term sheet is a legal document that is a summary of a longer agreement that's coming. So often you agree to a term sheet first, and then you iron out the details. That's the thing. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
So again, it's not an official sale, right? I suppose it seems like a preliminary agreement. Or something like that, which is fine. Business jargon. I'll be honest, I took engineering. I never knew anything. I don't know anything about business, man. I probably should, because this is such a fucking entrepreneurial industry. Everyone's like equity this, buying that, divest this. I fucking know. Sorry, I don't know anything about this shit. Anyway, can we go back to that tweet where Artur is responding to someone? First of all, obviously he applies some pejorative. Okay, fair enough. So I don't know. I know who he's tweeting at. I've seen this person before, but so basically he sold the ownership, which is important. So he again, which is fine, because when you own something and it has value, you're not just going to give it to someone. So NDAs was signed. I guess that means that people can't disclose the terms around this agreement. Pretty standard stuff. Once the contract, so Artur is divesting essentially from this situation. He's also the responsibility to pay the contractors is not on him anymore, but he has committed to providing an update to people getting paid. I think.
But it's vague because he signed NDAs, right? So NDAs are signed. You can't let people know who it is or whatnot. So this is why I'm assuming they. Unfortunately, it's taking a longer time. But again, as Scott is
How about you
mentioning,
sign ND's nuts? Just tell us what the fuck's going on.
Am I the only one who doesn't really give a shit about this? Like, I just want his fucking staff paid. I don't care about his Twitter bullshit. Like,
no,
cool.
I mean, fuck,
you signed a deal.
Yeah.
Just all I want is for you to pay your people. Maybe you should have been partying a little bit less and blowing all your money, and you should have just paid your staff in the first place. Like, I don't want to hear that he's making deals. I just want to hear that he's gonna pay the fucking staff. Like, who cares about this like drivel? I think at this point he's just trying to like seem like he's doing the right thing on Twitter, so he can like absolve himself of blame. And I'm just like, whatever, man. It was your mistake in the first place. You got yourself into the situation. Cool, you sold the business. I don't really care until your staff is paid.
Yeah. So I mean. I'm on the same page as you. I think what most interesting about this situation is that there's still an element from Artur's perspective where he is using this situation to drive some sort of interaction. I don't know if this is on purpose, right? But like the guy has edited a picture of his face on some fucking clip art of some contract.
Meme, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, remember, everybody, include a picture in all your tweets to get extra interact. I don't think people don't want a story. I think, and what Artur didn't understand in the first place is, look, he kept saying like, my story's coming out. Once I talk to a journalist that is going to agree to spin this in a way that favors me, my story's going to come out. But
I don't want the story, unfortunately, man.
No, well, people don't want the story, but like the problem is that there's this like incredibly deep-seated narcissism from him where he actually thinks that that's something that people are interested in. And that people don't want to hear the story. People just want the situation to be remediated. That's it. Like no one, like when someone hears there's a problem, my first thing is not to go, oh, I wonder why this thing is happening. You know what I mean? My first issue is like, there are people who are being adversely affected by this. Let's sort them out. And then maybe in a few years' time, right? I'm in a shitty airport. Let's say I'm in Berlin-Tegel airport for God knows what reason. And there's like a little tabloid there at the stand. And I've got a 25,000 hour layover. Maybe I'll pick up the fucking, the soft cover book, the 20-page Artur Minikov story, and maybe I'll fucking flick through it at the newsagent. But I'm not going to buy it and take it on the plane with me. You know what I mean? I'd rather make conversation with the Trumper sat next to me about why the fucking aliens are coming. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a priority to hear this. And like the way that it's being framed, and you can see what is important to Artur, I think, in terms of how he tweets about this, right? It's like important that people know my story. And I'm like, it is very presumptuous of you to think that people are interested in hearing that. I know it's probably also, I mean, there's a degree of ego death there as well. Cause you know, people don't really, but the reality is that when you have money, I suppose you think that people, you know, care about you more than just, the shit that you get up to, the crazy shit that you do. But the reality is that like you and me and everybody else, no one necessarily wants to hear our story unless we're the kind of person that has contributed to the community in such a way as that we are, you know, held in some regard or have some respect. Then people might want to fucking hear our stories. You sort of have to earn that position, right? You know, to become someone notable enough that people are interested in knowing your origin story, how you got there. Right now, it's like, you know, people who watch documentaries, they're the people you want to know your story. The only people that want to know Artur's story are the people that watch TMZ. They just want to know the fucking drama. They don't want to know about you, the person. They just want to read shit that makes them feel better about their own lives. I don't know why I'm ranting about this, but like, I don't understand these people.
Because we're the TMZ. People like watching us.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but also we're on this show. Yeah, okay, fair enough. You know what? As much as I love to talk shit about like this drama mill, people just like using it. We do that on this show. There's no doubt about it. But like I said, the reason why we're covering this is because, first of all, accountability is important. We want to, help provide some of that, at least for the people that are affected, who we're going to talk about in a moment. And secondly, because I think it's our responsibility. We could talk about anything. Fuck, like we wanted to make drama. I just go and call Vance a shit cunt on Twitter and just start some beef, and we could talk about that on the show. You know, it'd be like a fucking Logan Paul boxing match. It's so easy to manufacture drama. Look, let's talk about the people that I really care about in this situation. The people are actually affected by this. Let's talk about what current and previous employees are saying. Germanicus here. Vans, you want to read this out for me, mate? Just want to fucking read down through it?
Sure. So Germanicus goes, hey, so contrary to what's been implied, the deal isn't 100%. So as far as he knows, he's still waiting on a few documents. So probably what we meant by the fact sheet, formal sheet, whatever the sheet was called. We're not in that business either. So Scott, you're gonna have to reply on repeat that again.
Term sheet.
Term sheet. Thank you. But yeah, so then the people right now that are being owed, still not in there yet, but it's written in the deal that these guys should be paid. So then we're asking if it's not final, highly unlikely, but still possibility that it's working out, right? So I guess there's still light at the end of the tunnel that it is coming, but again, it feels like one of those soon TMs, and the soon TMs has been a soon TM for a couple of months already.
The Mandeep has no information.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't need to read that one. That was like 3 words right fucking there. Not at all.
So it could also be there could also be a sense where maybe they just don't want to contribute to this. The poor bastard maybe just wants to get on with their life, which is also fine. We reach out to people to obviously get their takes so we can be more accurate in our reporting. But yeah, I mean, if he doesn't know, he doesn't know, right? It's a wait and see situation, obviously. I don't think we need to dedicate any more time to this. What do you guys think? We fucking do.
I'm just like, we do not care. Pay your staff. Just get the fuck off Twitter and go figure it out. Shut up. They were supposed to be paid months ago. Another month TM means nothing to me.
Say it louder for the people in the back, baby. All right, let's crack on and talk about another interesting situation. Again, less drama llama, more just kind of confusing and also a cautionary tale. I think this situation is.
Yeah.
So we have 2 organizations. We have what is it? Metro Esports is one of these. Yeah. So
PAX
and we have
who's at fault, really.
We have PAX Arena, right? So PAX Arena, from what I understand, is a tournament organizer. They put on events. They run them. I assume they deal with the broadcast side of things. Metro, from what I can tell, is a company that is interested in driving grassroots or participation in esports competition. And their influence is localized to Pennsylvania, as far as I understand. I don't know to what part of fucking hell, I think Nerd Street Gamers is based there as well. So Pennsylvania kind of dominating when it comes to TOs. But so from what I understand is that Metro wanted to run this event. They put prize money up for it. And PAX were the people that were contracted to run the event. Essentially, DCOP, who many of you may know as a player, it's a player on this. It's not the Virtuoso team. They played against them, but he's a tier 2 Valorant player. He's been in FPS for a long time. Guy's quite good. Lives in Mexico, so he is Mexican national. Let's look. He's from Easy5. So let's look at the tweet. Here you go, Vans. Here's a pretty decent summary, but we will dig into it a little bit more.
Yeah. So then basically what happened to DCOP, he's playing with Easy5. He's been playing with them for quite a while. They were invited by PAX Metro to play into this almost pro tournament that they brought up, that PAX Metro, organized. So going through the tournament, everything is all Gucci. Once we get to the point where they're playing against Virtuoso Val in the upper finals, then the issue right now is that Virtuoso has a couple of players in the East Coast. So East Coast Canada, East Coast the States, whatever it is. So they want to find common ground to say, hey, can we play in an Illinois server? And then Easy5 went over to say, well, we kind of can't because we do have a player that is from Mexico. So can we actually choose a different server? And then that raised a flag over to PAX Metro, where now I guess we're going to try to understand the nitty-gritty of it as to why DCOP got DQ'd after.
Keep this up. First things first. DCOP in step 4 indicates that we got DQ'd. That is not correct. From our information, we know that he himself was disqualified, and his team was offered the opportunity to play on with a sub. Now, does that really make anything better? No. Just want to make that clear, though. That was, that is the situation here.
Yeah.
So let's pass this out a little bit. He was invited, right? DCOP directly, his team, right? Directly invited by PAX Arena to compete in this tournament. So he's fine because there's legal issues obviously with Mexico, especially paying people. Half the reason why all these competitions that you see are like restricted to certain localizations is because you're giving product like that. Like it's complex.
It's the same thing for even me being like from Quebec. Like a simple thing like I cannot participate in draws across Canada or whenever like giveaways are being done from the States, and they say in North America, there's still one small clause in fucking tiny little lines that says excluding Quebec. Fuck! So I can't win anything at all.
Why
So
is that? Because y'all are weird and speak funny?
Yeah, man. This, they think it's like gambling, and it falls under like the gambling and prizing regulations that they had to put it all under the same.
We do that with Tasmania, but it's because they married their siblings. So
yeah, there you go.
Slightly
similar
different.
to that. I guess it's similar.
Let me.
So it's in the. It's probably in the contract, right? Like, do people read the fine print when I'm signing up to a tournament? Let me think about this. When I signed up to tournaments, there would be a disclaimer. There often is, right? There's a rule book that's available. It's like a link on the Battlefy bracket. It's there. We found it. I mean, okay, I feel like I'm spelunking. I need a fucking bathysphere to get this deep into the contract, but clearly states the tournament is open to players who are legal residents of the United States, including the District of Columbia, thank God, or Canada, and aged 15 years of age or older, as of the respective start date of the tournament, or such age if greater, as may be required by a player's jurisdiction of residence. Okay, yeah, that's fair. All players are required to register with the tournament organizers by providing the required information via the tournament website and filling out a waiver. So, yeah, interesting, because I would assume that when you register to the platform, you probably would include your country of residence.
You did,
right?
Didn't, I don't think. So I don't think that was a thing on this, because okay, before I start chatting shit, let me preface something. I did work this event. Everything I am saying is from stuff that was just made public. So PAX, I'm not saying anything that happened with you guys.
Okay. She has her own little star.
Yeah, but in the foreground of this, I went back and looked when they were talking about DQing him, and it's like not there on SmashGG. It's just in that one little fine print bubble, which is, by the way, in a 20-page document that you have to scroll all the way down. I tried like Control Fing, and it like wouldn't even work Control F. So you really got to dig, or you have to be some kind of nerd and read the entire thing to do it. But I feel like this is like almost completely on PAX for a couple reasons. First of all, the invitation. That's cool, right? They got invited. At that point, yeah, EZ5 probably should have checked it if they were abiding by the rules, but where it falls onto PAX, I think, is that they played the first week. EZ5 played a whole week of this tournament with nothing going wrong, without any admin checking that they were from the right countries, without any admin checking any of this. If they had checked before they even started playing and DQ'd because he was Mexican, like, oh, sorry, dude, we didn't realize. Cool, fine. You're just following your rules. That's perfect. But the fact that they didn't know until they were ready to play the upper finals, until they were already a team who was like in it for the money match, and then they were like, wait, shit, we fucked up, guys. Y'all can't play. I think that really puts the blame on them, and I don't know. I think you need to be more careful there. I would have loved to see them try and exempt to make him play, because the thing is, EZ5 tried to flex. They were going to even offer to play without money. I think it's likely, because I know a lot of orgs are looking at these teams right now, because I think EZ5 and Virtuoso are the top ones there. Yeah. So they want to be playing these events on stream for scouts to be able to watch, right? They want to be able to publicize that stuff. And they lost out on that opportunity. Besides the show match, they lost out on the money, which is a lot for a free agent team. Like, I think PAX just needed to do their due diligence earlier on and shut things down. I think once they had already played for a week, that's when EZ5 was kind of absolved of responsibility.
Yeah, you can't intervene without affecting the competitive integrity of the fucking tournament, because they've already played, right?
Yeah. Because it was just two random, like, lower bracket teams who, I'm gonna be real, had no chance to win the event over.
Yeah, they just put him into the final.
Won it. Yeah, they just slapped him right in the final.
So who the fuck wants to watch it now? Sorry, but like,
it's a little bit of both, I find, because at some point, if PAX Metro sent the invitations to the teams, then there would have been at some point where the admin maybe did an honest mistake, saying, "Oh, I already know these players or whatnot. They've been playing the tier 2 scene for the longest time. I'm not gonna. I'm assuming at this point, right? I'm not saying it's like they're really their mistake or not, but there's also a chance that maybe even rulebook from an admin standpoint, have they done their due diligence of reading the rulebook first before inviting after? And then for the player's perspective, is after you get the invitation and you get the rulebook, you should actually read it, right? It's the same thing, maybe, where you're looking at, I am receiving their contract and I'm signing to a team. If I'm going to be presented like, hey, I'm going to get signed by a top tier team, but I'm not reading the contract and I'm not reading the fine prints, I could still get fucked in the end. So I have to make sure that I do my due diligence to make sure that I'm protected too.
Yeah. I think I understand. So obviously this is the invite letter, right? So Brian, okay? Brian is scouting and has invited this team. Can I just make something very clear? If you want to know Decop's nationality, excuse me. You go to vlr.gg, you type in Decop in the fucking search bar.
Or you go to his Twitter. Anything, any element of research would have shown.
Can I get can we show that actually right now? Can we just show what happens when you type in Decop in vlr.gg and select the first option if you're scouting, Brian? Because I'm looking at this page right now and I don't need to use Control F to see the fact that there is a fucking Mexican flag under his name.
Yeah,
it says Mexico next to it in case you're dumb and think it's fucking Italy. It's right there. I'm looking. I'll turn the camera to screen. Sorry. Therein lies the main issue, I think. This whole situation, right? You guys have said it. A bit of digital. Here we go. Here we go. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it for you. Decop. There it is. Carlo. Nice fucking name. Bam! It's right there.
Pull up the screenshot I just added you to, Daniel. It's literally everywhere. Every single one of this guy's social media has a Mexican flag in there. Like, he's not trying to hide anything. Yeah. He's not trying to be sneaky. He's proud of where he lives. Look at that. Right there. A Mexican flag, 22. Smile. Like, any amount of research would have shown
Enhance more! Enhance! All right. So anyway,
look, they still invited how many teams? How many teams they ended up inviting for?
I think there was just like 4 that were actually invited. There wasn't that many.
Okay.
So it would have been researching like 15, 20 players, which would not have been very hard.
Okay. But I don't know. I'd still read the fine print.
Okay, yeah. So the email, obviously, the email. If you're a player on one of these teams, like maybe your manager also should have a look at this stuff. But like, this is like a mixed team, right? It's not like an org. It's just a group of players, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
I get like why they agreed not to play for prize money. The thing is for for Metro, like first of all, like PAX Arena is like, well, it's not our money. It's given to us probably by Metro. They put it up, and we got to get it. Someone has to take it. Someone has to take the fucking money. We can't take it. You know, it's an expense that, you know, is recorded by Metro for that particular reason. So someone has to get prize money. So them choosing not to play for prize money, obviously, the whole point of PAX running this event is to give the fucking prize money to someone, to have a reason to give it to someone, right? I see what I don't love that they're calling this a misrepresentation. It's not misrepresented. Excuse me. Yeah, they accepted your invitation. I believe it's incumbent on you. If you literally use the word scouting in your fucking invite email, they're not misrepresenting anything. They assume that you're complicit in this. If you want to make it sound like you did even a modicum of research in inviting this team, then you are culpable for this mistake. I'm sorry, you can't just go like, they misrepresented themselves, these reprehensible scallywags that are stealing our American money with their Mexican plate. No, shut the fuck up,
Decop is clearly hiding it. Clearly hiding it.
Cross them by. All right. So we had a chat with so Virtuoso felt pretty strongly about this, right? This all, you know, they said, so we obviously they didn't want to take the free W, because the point is that like 10K is great. 10K is a good amount of money. I think what Mimi pointed out, Vans, is that they want the chance to play in an official that's streamed, casted, you name it, you know, so people can see that these teams are not trying to get money, right? They're trying to get noticed by teams who will then give them more money over a longer period of time. Like the money is just a cherry on top here. So they decided that continuing this event would be in conflict with the morals and competitive spirit of our team, and we will be withdrawing. So obviously the money doesn't mean that much to these guys either, if they can take or leave it. It is nice, I think, to be able to be principled, you know, about this. That's their choice. I also wouldn't have felt bad about them if they chose not to, but no one wants a forfeit win in a grand final. I assume they would have just brought up one of the lower bracket teams and made Virtuoso play the same fucking team they beat in the semis again or something like that. But so PAX in their sorry, Ian's bringing this up to me. PAX did say that a third party invited EasyFi, so they don't name Metro, but
It's Metro,
I'm not
obviously.
Yeah. Well, it's Brian. I know Brian at Metro. The Brian, the fucking talent scout. Look, any nascent scene is going to have snafus like this. Again, the outcome is that the team still got to play each other. The Streisand effect meant that they got more exposure than they would otherwise have. I would say it's worth the foregoing the 10K, in my opinion, because what I mean by that is that with people, hearing about the fact that there had to be a fucking show match scheduled in this Justice for Decop thing, which is, okay, come on, guys, like we're getting a little bit, we're stretching the validity of the term Justice for X, but I'm sure more people's eyes got on it, which is what the teams wanted anyway. So sucks for PAX and for Metro because their tournament essentially it's invalidated. I think it's a lot of hard work on the side of the admins and the organizers for a tournament that doesn't really mean anything, and actually now its significance is greatly diminished. And I think that's regrettable for anyone. Like, they're not the enemy; they just fucked up. They did it wrong, and now their tournament is a sham.
Yeah.
So,
well, they have a chance to do it again. It's just unfortunate that this is all fucked up now.
So we talked to Anders. Anders is the coach of Virtuoso, right? We spoke to him last week, actually. Really well-spoken guy. I love to have him on the show. This is his perspective here. So, I think he's pretty balanced in his, approach. I don't think anything that, Martin is sharing here with us is surprising anyone, right? It was a cascading situation of errors made. Do we have other graphics for that one? I think a conversation with Anders extends further, but I don't necessarily know. There's no juice there, right? Are we doing the thing again? Are we just making something out of nothing? I don't know. But yeah, so, they were invited as well, Virtuoso. So, Martin can sort of corroborate that this is how it happens. We have an email that shows that, like I said, end of the day, I think they're fine. I think both teams are not too much worse off except for the money, which gets split
Probably
pretty
better off, honestly.
Right? Because
it's so much attention.
Did you end up casting the show match, by the way?
Yeah. No, I didn't cast the show match because I couldn't. I wanted to cast the show match, but I couldn't.
See,
I was under contract with PAX that day, but I did cast the grand final, which was like the two random teams from the lower bracket. But I watched the show match, and they got good viewership, right? Like, there was like a good 1,000 or 1,500 people showing out to watch these two teams just play for fun. Like, it was really fun. The community really came together to support them, and I don't know. I just love that from I feel like the tier 2 community is pretty tight knit, and like when something shitty happens, they're pretty quick to pick it up. So I don't know. You kind of love
the only person who loses here is Mimi, who doesn't get to cast the two best teams from that tournament.
Sad.
Saj McGann. Was the final any good? Just out of curiosity, the PAX Arena final.
It's a 3-0. It was. I don't know if you remember. I don't know where my camera is, but T-Dog. He was the guy who was getting scammed by the fake FaZe Academy. He's a really good guy in the community. Him and some other players, some former players of SSG. It was a lot of people who used to be signed to others. They absolutely stomped the bug. That was it. It was one notable team kind of destroyed. I think they're called the Monzu. They're someone I had never heard of before. I never. Fuck it,
my boy T-Dog getting a W. That's fine with me, yo.
You love to see it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love to see it.
Al at FaZe Academy, a W and almost pro.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, fucking hell, dude. All right, well, yeah, maybe they get picked up by a legit org at some point along the line. Okay, so we're gonna go to a break. When we come back, we've got we had a bunch of roster shuffles, right? Both in NA and EU. We're probably gonna talk a lot more to the NA roster shuffle, and to do that, we're bringing back onto the show a good mate of ours, Kaplan, who obviously has hosted No Cap podcast. He'll be coming on to help us break some of this down. So stick around. We'll be back with Kaplan to talk about some of these roster shuffles after the break. Welcome back, everybody, to Valoranting, a professional rating show. We have waded knee-deep through all the crap that we need to get through. It feels like housekeeping at this point, but now once we've scrubbed the excrement from the walls, we can welcome into our humble abode the one and only Kaplan, of course, host of the No Cap podcast. Thanks for joining us again, man. Great to have you back so soon.
Thank you for having me. I always love chatting with you guys. Ton of fun last time, and surprised and happy to be back so soon.
First, I want to congratulate you guys on your run with Ghost. I'm sure at the end, not maybe the result you wanted in last challenges, but I think a lot of people were really impressed with what the team's been able to do, man. So congrats there.
Thank you. Hoping to one up it this time, and we have a little bit of a easier bracket, so gonna try to make it count.
Nice.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, look at how it's getting darker in my place, and it's about to get more light into Adam's place.
That's right.
You're gonna see like a nice little contrast again of lighting across the show.
Little cloudy here, but you know, I'll try to compete with Montreal. Yeah. Oh, that's right. You're in Spain actually.
Right now,
that's
bro.
right. That's right.
But did you know, Kaplan? He's in Spain. He just wants you to know.
Yeah,
that's right.
But I'm not Ryan Central Twitter verified, you know. So I don't know. Like, if I had to choose,
it's more of a curse than a blessing. Hey, let's talk about some roster changes, right? So obviously, Vans, you're located in Europe right now, so that's basically all the criteria required for you to be an expert based on who joined the show. So we're going to talk about some of the European roster moves here. I know that Kaplan has some thoughts as well. NAVI has entered the Valorant spheres. Finally, I think last week, a couple weeks ago, we talked about that sort of announcement video where the guy's like, "Nah, I'm not doing a team yet. Nah, I'm not doing a team yet." But here is the team. A lot of hard to pronounce names. None of them that I personally recognize. So this is a great chance for us to flesh this out a little bit. Maybe I know Arch, or I've heard of him, but talk to me about this team. What should we expect? And what does this mean for, especially for Valorant in the CIS region?
Yeah. Well, I guess if I could start things off, I think for NAVI, they had a lot of players that came from like different disciplines, right? As you mentioned, Arch before, he was kind of known more in like the CIS scene for Counter-Strike Go. They played for like Team Spirit and whatnot, but the team that they played together, they got picked up from, I think it was like No Pressure or No Pression. And they were able to, let's say, beat Forza twice during like, I think VCT qualifiers, which means like on paper, and even in game, they've been able to prove themselves in the scene, at least in the CIS scene. I even think like one of the players got to play with like even Angel in the past as well, in like the Valorant careers or whatnot. In the end, though, they also added a coach and an analyst, and the coach, his name is Smart7, and Smart7 actually played in the Red Bull Campus Clutch that I was at over the weekend, so I do know a bit about this team after all. But Smart7 was like a big in-game leader in the scene too, but being at a very young age, still wanted to focus more on the coaching style. So not only do they have skill set now for this roster, they also have great coaching behind to be able to like just put a good impact from the rip. And for a team or an organization like NAVI to pick them up over like dropping, let's say, hey, let us put more money in to like get somebody like FPX, for example, right? It's pretty sick to see that they have, you know, relatively known team within CIS, but unknown in the world to join a team like NAVI. This is actually pretty cool for them.
Yeah, I'm glad to see Arch finally on like on a big team too. Like in CS, I think he played for Spirit, but I feel like he never really had his big shot in that game. But he was still a really strong player throughout his play in CS:GO. And I haven't watched too much of him in Valorant. I didn't even really know he had switched on over to Valorant until I saw this announcement for NAVI. And I guess I don't really know the rest of the players too much, but I'm excited to see what this guy can get done.
Yeah, personally, I'll say, you know, if a coach has in-game leader experience, they're just guaranteed to know what they're doing. You know, big vouch there, and he's got smart in his name, so they definitely are going to be cruising. I took a poke around on this team after they got announced, and something I really like about them is if you look at their roster and the comps they're playing, they're not only are they flexible, but they're actually flexing between roles a lot from map to map, like. You know, their Astra player is not their Omen player. You know, on one map they have their Killjoy player on Raze. On another one, he's playing Killjoy, and they have somebody else on Raze. And I really have a lot of respect for teams who take the approach of every player being very flexible, and then kind of being able to like pull off whatever comp or game plan makes the most sense, because you don't have to cater around player comfort as much. And I think you know, teams take both styles, really going toward, you know, being agent specialists versus playing musical chairs and being able to play whatever they want. But this team really looks like they just pick a comp, and no matter what, they're going to make it work. Like, they really aren't worried about who can play what.
I mean, so they obviously winning against Forza is always a big deal. Where should our expectations be for this team, right? Because, you know, we see plenty of teams that come out of the woodwork, and okay, so we actually reckon these are like top contenders essentially out of the gate.
I mean, they're
Listen,
only really
for me, it's just because they're picked by NAVI.
Yeah, I mean, Na'Vi is a huge org. They're only really losing to Gambit, who I think is the best team in CIS right now. And I think they have a chance to beat him with this roster. I think this is a roster that's in contention to possibly be that best CIS squad, who might even be kind of a consistent representation in, EMEA overall. Who knows? I'm not sure how they'll stack up against the rest of Europe, but I think at least in their own region, they're going to do damn well.
Okay. Yeah, obviously, I just realized it's occurred to me now that No Pressure was the name of the roster beforehand.
That's
so
no pressure, no pressure.
Yeah, you can see some of their results if you want to look back, and it does include a 0-2 and a 0-3 to Gambit. So, in fairness, FPX fell on the wrong side of Gambit not so long ago. Ended up not going to Iceland. So it happens to the best teams, and they are a scary team. I feel like CIS doesn't get a ton of coverage by comparison to EU, so people can be blindsided by it. But if you go back and look, my favorite time in European Valorant is the Challenge playoffs, right? Where they go into regional, and we sort of last time we got Liquid and Fnatic come out there, but the competition was really, really good in the lead up to Iceland. So I'm looking forward to it again.
Exactly, because even like Yinsu, for example, swore by the fact that the CIS region with Gambit and whatnot within that qualifier was so unfair for Europe. Now that there's just so limited spots that if you actually put Gambit or any other CIS team in like the Korean qualifiers or the Southeast Asia qualifiers, then we'll definitely have those teams as well coming into play into Masters. So there's the teams and the organizations and even the talent are placing this team or placing this region in very high regard. But again, the first test is who's the best in that region, and then now can they hang with like the Fanatics, the Liquids, and I guess everybody else in Europe that's currently like stepping up to the plate for this stage.
Let's stick with Europe here because Vodafone Giants have announced that they are having two players. One of you may be more aware of is DavidP. Fuck me, and Andy stepping in for the Giants. So first of all, can one of you give us a primer on this Vodafone Giants team for those that maybe aren't close to the European region and want to know a little bit more about like what this even means? What this is a at least up until now, like it was a Spanish team, or at least was playing in like the LVP Rising and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Vodafone Giants basically, or an organization that has been around for quite a while actually, even in the CS:GO scene.
Is it Meta on this team? Didn't he leave FPX and join this team?
I think so. At some point, Meta was in this too, but even in Counter-Strike, you also had like I'm pretty sure Lowell was in there at some point as well. So they were trying to like make it into that scene, but when it comes down, they didn't do too well in CS:GO, or you're looking at how it's going in Valorant, then some of the players that are cycling through these rosters are now getting poached into other teams, as you mentioned before, into the last players that changed. But when you look at it now, is like, will these two players of DavidP and this player that I'm unknown for to join this team, are they going to make a mark and be able to qualify? I don't put too much attention into this, unfortunately, because I don't think they will.
Yeah. My wonder is DavidP going to call for this squad? Because he was calling for, what was he on before? It was Excel, right? And he was like on that roster for like 2 minutes. Nothing happened. And then he's like, bye-bye. Like, I don't know. I have no faith, right? Like, I feel like this is another one of those squads where they're just going to shuffle things around, try and find something. But I don't see him as a top competitor.
Yeah, so, and it's... Yeah. Sorry, Mitch. And it's just to say, like, it's not to be mean on, like, the org or, like, what these guys could bring. But, like Andy, for example, I'm just looking at his stats over the past into the challengers. Like, the team that he played for was pretty decent, right? They almost made it into the round of 8, I guess, to qualify into close qualifiers, where the biggest opponent was Megasitsu. But they lost to BK Rog that actually had that pretty nice run. I think they were that team that beat Heretics, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they were. They knocked them out in the round of 64, I think.
Yeah, and they're my homies. They're like 3 brothers that are all Vietnamese.
Yeah, they're French boys, but yeah, they're
exactly
3 brothers. Fucking
3 brothers that are Belgian Vietnamese people. So to see like maybe what's cool right now again, and what's a pro into like VCTs and open circuits, is that now you have players that are maybe again relatively unknown to the world stage. That have a chance now to represent maybe a bigger org, but again, on paper, the roster might not have the same impact as they want it to be for Vodafone Giants.
Yeah, I think this Ambi guy, I looked up his stats and he looks like a total beast. And I will say players that a lot of the Jet players you see can usually play Reyna, like they can play these two kind of more selfish duelists, but he has a pretty mean Raze, and I really love seeing players who can play Jet and Raze. They could play the mobility agent no matter what map you're on. And I do think that the DavidP pickup seems a bit funny because he's been bouncing around a lot, and it makes me question his attitude. And if that's an issue and you put that player set up to call or something on a team that is more scrappy and trying to bring up and comers up, it's going to test somebody's patience a lot more, actually, than coming from a more experienced team.
Yeah,
it'll help those players more.
I really wondered what your take was on DavidP, Kaplan, because you go from G2, you look pretty good in fairness for a time, and things just seem to not work out. You get implicated with on this Excel roster with this Biggie bloke who we know has just got a fucking awful reputation. That doesn't work out, and now you're a stand-in on Giants. Because when in early Valorant, I used to watch DavidP stream. I was like, this guy's fucking cracked, bro.
Same here.
His ghost was nasty, man. Like, for example. But does this guy just float around for a little bit, and then because he obviously dealt with some pretty serious family issues, and we know how that can affect someone. I mean, he kept playing, despite that. A lot of people don't, and I imagine he was under a lot of internal pressure, with what was going on at home. But this guy doesn't seem like he's really fitting wherever he goes, and I have to wonder why that is.
I was making the point a little bit earlier, like as an IGL too, like I think in his bio it said that he was like the IGL for Giants as well. Like he's a stand-in. Like I feel like when you have someone who's calling and you're like putting them into a new team every 5 minutes, like you don't have time to establish that system with your players, and I feel like it's never a recipe for success.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now, I still believe that you could still have an opportunity to be able to get something if you understand quite well, right? If you're at that level and you can understand off the rip how the players are going to play and know exactly how to call off that. Like I think one of the good examples was Zeke, if not mistaken, right, when he was playing for a G2 and they were finally getting some sort of result, maybe not the result that we want to get for G2, but still got some result as like a newly IGL coming into it. And even like a Coldamenta right now with G2 right now. Then they've been like fucking killing it so far. So there is opportunities there, but of course the pedigree and the players that you have for G2 is not the same as you have for Vodafone Giants. But to get back on DavidP is, I look at his social medias and I look at when he streams. Even now, he's always so nice and so humble for some people too. So I want to know what happens within closed doors when it comes down to like the competitiveness and how the chemistry is in game. Maybe he's just like that person that's very competitive and really wants to win, and unfortunately it takes out the worst out of you. But still, outside of the game, he's still the fucking kindest guy that I see on Twitter.
Don't get it. And I think it like you said, Mitch, he was dealing with some things, and he, being an IGL can be really taxing. And I do think in some ways this could be a good move for him because it's a more scrappy and up and coming team. It's kind of weird to jump in as an IGL right away. But if it gives him a little less pressure and a little more time and space to like build up a system as a caller, I think it can help a lot. Your whole experience as an IGL can be much smoother when you actually have some time to work in the way you like to call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Again, I don't know the guy outside the game at all. I just thought he played really well when I got a chance to see him. So I hope he settles a bit because he's operating outside the sphere of those more solid teams in Europe, and I think he's a quality player. I don't know how he's adapted. I think he was like a Sage main, so I don't know really what he's doing with himself nowadays. This one's interesting for me. So when I watched Team Liquid, right? Obviously, what were they? Fish 1, 2, 3 before that, yeah.
Right.
I really enjoyed Eccles. I thought he was a really interesting player. I think it was IGLing on that roster, right? I think it was pretty clear to see after a time that like he was not able to really put out the performances that Liquid were valuing, right? And this is now a roster where like in his wake, Yumpy joined the fucking team, right? So like you're dealing with like serious fraggers, like no nonsense sort of stuff. I do wonder about the calling structure of that team, but that's by the by. Eccles, it was on no poach for a while, which had like a lot of extremely poachable players. Turns out, got poached, didn't he? NIP signs Eccles now as well. So were NIP experiencing a dearth of leadership or you know, a requirement, you know, like what is it that Eccles is intended to bring to this roster when we kind of know that, you know, he received criticism about his sort of performances when it came to fragging in game?
Oof. Okay. Well, what to think about, I guess, at this point is
But he replaces a Kukos, right?
exactly. So he's going to replace Akukos. Akukos right now, the IGL for NIP, and Akukos also had at some point expressed that I think he's like having wrist injuries and stuff like that too,
Yeah,
right?
he couldn't play. He could play for it. He had to.
Exactly.
He had to literally stop playing a series. He played like one map, I think, because his wrist is.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. So unfortunately, like, just like Patty Pan, somebody's gonna have to. He's gonna have to like take a break out of that, and maybe like it's not sustainable for him to play that in long term. And I think even then, if I'm not mistaken, Akukos is gonna be going into like a coaching role for NIP. So now, which is good for NIPs, you have two brilliant minds now to help out this team. Where I think there were that type of team when you were looking at them play on Ascent, playing a no duelist, like one of those first teams that went no duelist, and they're like, holy shit, like they could actually do something with this. And Eccles, I don't think he was like that, like a terrible fragger as well, or either rather for for Fish 1-3 or for Team Liquid. So I think now that Akukos is able to call quite well, maybe not put the same amount of frags as you want him to because of his wrist injuries, and if Eccles is somewhat, how can I put this? If he's being criticized about his aim or what he could bring onto the table in terms of the fragging power,
it was a criticism he suffered on Liquid. I remember that.
Yeah, so I still find that he might still be able to do a little bit more in terms of that fragging department. Maybe not as much as we expected to than other IGLs that could exist out there in the pool. But I think that he's definitely going to be able to help NIP in terms of like the IGL department. Sure.
This team was kind of stacked, right? I had Element, Eccles, couple like I mean I would say these guys are like, I mean, a better pickup than OG's roster when they first put together at the very least. That team made no fucking sense, and Element got dropped. Wasn't Element on that team, or was he on Entropic? Oh, he was on that team with Twix, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I like this. Is it temporary, or is it? It seems like it's more permanent then. Yeah.
That's right. It has to be permanent because of the wrist injury that Kukos has, unfortunately. So it's good. I think the call before that from No Poaching was that nobody's gonna move, everybody's gonna stick together, they're gonna get picked up, and that's the deal. But
it doesn't.
It's
work
always
out
like
that.
Can't blame
like
them.
Trying to form a union working for Amazon. You know?
Yeah.
The motherfuckers will pick you apart.
They want to make money. They want to compete. They have an opportunity within IP. I mean, NIP is not a bad team, right? They're so close to making it to like starting to qualify as well into like the bigger stages, and they're almost there. Falls in short. They're kind of like the exit, I think, when that team first came out for Europe, and now they're starting to be back on that up and up. So hopefully, Eccles is going to be able to help out in terms of what's missing on top of that, right? So is Eccles going to play a breach or something like that, depending like what Akukos is doing
breach,
before?
Sova.
Exactly. So that's left to find out at this point.
Let's talk about Heretics, because this is the team that we speculated came off arguably second best in the G2 without knowing, where the money went. Yeah. This team obviously on paper looked like they were getting a little bit of the short deal, right? So they obviously Artist joins this team and PaxTech join this team. We now know that Artist is I guess taking a break. Is it's health related? It might be. Unclear. So health issues have been affecting Artists. So Amilwa, God fucking help me. Somebody please tell me who this is.
I'm gonna have to rely on anybody else here.
Looking ignorant.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a silver for Silva. This is all that I know right now. Like he's played right now in the VCT qualifiers under a team called Rejects. I guess was getting pretty okay in terms of qualifying through the open bracket, but once they meet the opposition of Mitch Mans's old team being the Alliance, then they got a map out of them. But outside of that, it's just like, okay, well, it's a Silva for a Silva. Is it going to be enough compared to what Artist brings to the table? Potentially, because has Artist now in Patatech dropped off in terms of what they bring to the tables too since G2? Potentially as well, right? So is it going to be a good trade-off 1-for-1? That I can't tell because I have never watched this guy play.
So he was on this Volvo Peak roster, which had Juso, the Irish bloke that I know Mitch was really interested in for obvious reasons, and also Valorante. So there might be some connection. There's probably some connection there, right? The two sort of are familiar with each other, but you know, it's always a tough one with players like this. Unless you're like unless you're knee deep in a lot of these VODs, it can be a little bit hard to, you know, uncover crucial insights about these kind of individuals. But look, I mean, the Volvo Peak team, I think they in recent history, they beat XL and a few other rosters. They got to like they're like a round of 128, round of 64 team, I think so. They were it was always just a mix, and I think there were a lot of players that sort of rotated through there, so that's fine. I think the Heretics need a fresh start. I think you're probably feeling a little bit hard done by though, because I think if you're Heretics, you definitely want to get value out of artists. When you think about what you as an org maybe had to give up or lost at least in player capital in that trade, this is probably a pretty unfortunate circumstance for them. Not much more to add.
No, yeah, it's hard to tell, especially with a Sova player. It's just sometimes these Sovas join teams and just completely come alive, or they just set up, you know, really synergize with their duelists. Other times it looks a little awkward. It's just, I think it's specifically a role that's really hard to quantify, like how good an up and coming player is going to be with their first big break.
Coming from the man himself that played fucking Sova in Breach, right?
That's right. Not proud of the Breach. We don't talk about that one.
All right, so let's talk about Vitality then. This is the roster that was, I mean, initially designed to be built around Brams and Fragon. They've obviously undergone a few changes since that point. Jesmond has been removed from the roster. I believe Jesmond was one of the original players, but this guy is replacement. Shalaby. Vance, were you not with him this weekend?
Yeah, man, this guy is fucking sick. Holy shit. Yeah, so Shalaby, so I'll talk a bit about the campus clutch right now.
He's Egyptian, that's awesome.
Yes, it's an Egyptian team where I didn't know about this guy, right? But apparently a lot of people know about this player in EU. And now it kind of like makes me think, okay, well, Turkey, whenever they're streaming games, it's like a mecca of like, there's a Turkey region that has a lot of viewership going on right now. Even though there's not enough viewership going into Africa right now, but knowing how attack FPS has been so popular in the Middle East for the longest time, because I mean, I've casted some 1.6 and some CS Source back in the days in Dubai, and it was always such a big crowd of like Middle Eastern teams and players and flying from all these different regions, right? From the UAE. But back onto Shalaby, this guy was like a crack duelist right now for that team, Anubis, and there was even a map. It was a best of 5 series against Project S, which is a Portugal team, and they lost a second map, 0-13 on Icebox as well. So now they're down maps 0 and 2, and Shalaby just starts popping off for the rest of the fucking series, and these guys do a reverse sweep against Portugal to actually win. So not only is he actually really good in mechanically, because he is a duelist, really, really good on a raise, pretty decent on Reyna as well. But it shows that he's also able to get or have a lot of tenacity and have the mindset of like, hey, an 0-13 backs against the wall, we could still fucking do this. We could. Well,
they won the next map 13-2, mate. So talk about a fucking bounce back.
Exactly. So 13-2, and then even the last 2 maps, there's been some dominant performance from Shalaby. So he's always on pretty much on top in terms of like the rest of the team in terms of the fragging department. The only thing I find that sucks there for Shalaby was that I think it was him that did the interview before getting to the grand finals. And he was saying like, man, like our team, Anubis, like we're like fucking family, you know. So like if we lose, we pick each other up. If we win, we cheer each other up, and we win it as a family, and we lose as a family. And unfortunately, he's gonna leave the family because you know maybe he's got some wings now, and he's moving to I guess outside university into the real world, and he's gonna play for Vitality. It's huge right now. It's a great opportunity.
Getting him on the map. I love to see more like North African and Middle Eastern representing in Valorant. I think that's awesome. I think there's like a really underserved player base and maybe fan base out there. I mean, you kind of glossed over the fact that you traveled to Dubai to cast fucking CS, man.
Yeah, On the rug.
Yeah. What was that? The Shakes behest, mate? Eh? Did you get fucking? did you have a pet tiger for the weekend? I mean, I would love to do an esports event in Dubai, mate. That place is fucking insane.
So again, I'm gonna go on a small tangent here, but because you talked about a fucking tiger. But there was one time I was on the boulevard, right? And the boulevard is just like a bunch of Lamborghinis and fucking Porsches, whatever, because everyone's fucking rich, right? And then there was like a BMW, so I was like, okay, that's like the Honda Civics in Dubai. So I'm like stuck in traffic, and I'm looking back in this fucking BMW, and there's a fucking pet tiger in the back seat, dude. It was like fucking insane. My mind was fucking blown at how much money these guys have in the UAE and how cool it was actually to be in Dubai. I think that year, the tallest building in the world wasn't even finished yet. It was like at the 180th floor of 182.
The Burj Khalifa.
Right? Yeah. So it was pretty cool.
Almost as famous as Mia Khalifa, you know, the second most famous Khalifa in the world.
Oh my god! All right, next topic. That's okay. So he's got a D's nuts and a fucking Mia Khalifa. What the fuck are you on today, Uber?
All
right.
The last, excuse me. Yes, some decorum to be regained here. The last part of this, we'll talk about BDS. Obviously, you know,
BDSM now. Okay, cool.
BDS. So they had a player by the name of I mean, they're making it too easy for me. A player by the name of GatsH. This was a French roster that looked pretty good, I think, in the lead up to Masters 1, I want to say. You know, obviously with guys like Logan, Akuma on this team, right? Looked really, really good. They're like slapped around G2 when they were on their decline here. You know, I don't think Edelweiss Esports as a roster really impressed anyone that much. I think there was like a couple decent results from them, but they're adding a 6th player to their roster. So, I mean, I think they lose this series against Ascend, but I mean, okay, I don't know how much there is to say about this. We sort of, I think it's interesting, but I don't know a ton about this guy.
Me neither. I'm going to skim through it as well, because for me, it's like a 6-man roster. Again, it's going to have to be what is going on with the team right now. Does he have to replace somebody because there's issues going on? Somebody has to take a step back for a bit, because we've talked about it numerous times so far that 6-player roster so far into Valorant, it doesn't seem to be the solution for anything right now, right? Like just earlier on, we had Paperthinhere coming in here, and we talked about how last week Vision Strikers has like an 8-player roster, but you know, already Zess is sitting out on whatever reason it is. So, you know, you're starting to see that starting to shave down quite a bit until you're back into your core 5. So I wonder what happens there.
Yeah. Every 6-man, so I just put it in chat too. Every 6-man roster is a 6-man roster until they kick someone. I feel
exactly.
Like. It's like, I feel like it's like the nice way to kick someone out of the team. You bring someone in for a bit, you can kind of trial them while still technically having your other player signed. So if it doesn't work out, you have that kind of secondary option. But I think within the next month, someone's probably going to get the boot. I don't know enough about the team dynamic of them to know who that might be, but I have a feeling like I've seen very few, if any, teams succeed with the 6-man roster. We're still early days in Valorant, but it never really worked in CS too well either. So,
yeah, I don't know what you think about this, Kaplan, because I remember Sick tweeting about it, saying that it can create a bit of a weird dynamic in the team to have a 6th player, and that, like, you know, people sort of feel like their job is even more on the line. And at the time, I argued, like, stop being soft, like, drink a cup of concrete and hunt the fuck up, but, you know, from someone who actually has expertise and actually, you know, probably an informed opinion, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on teams that do this and what it means and the impact it can have.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on the game, the setting of the team. Like, I agree. In CS, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. You're playing the same play. There's no agents. There's no heroes, right? Why? I do think it adds just an insane amount of pressure, and it's hard to explain it outside of that a lot of the time. I think, for example, Overwatch or League, it makes a lot more sense, right? You have these big hero pools. I think for Valorant, it can make sense if you have a younger player or a player coming over from another game. Like, honestly, if you look at Cloud9, I think like what they've done with the 6-man rosters look really sensible and well done. I think if you have a larger coaching staff, you can really get value out of it and make it make sense. I think for some of these smaller teams, there's just one coach. They're a little scrappier. They're a little bit of a smaller org. It's hard for me to believe it's anything except like a nice way of taking your time with a roster change. I think as the game gets bigger and we see larger staff, it would make a ton of sense. For example, I think, you know, you can really train a player up if you have the resources for it.
I still have to chuckle for a split second because, you know, Kaplan was saying how, you know, Cloud9's doing pretty good with a 6-player roster, but I know it's on a run a show, but there's also rumors right now that, you know, Floppy put the googly eyes in his Twitter feed.
Oh, God, yeah.
He's not Valorant Pro anymore in his title. So rumors are is that he's going back into Counter-Strike, and that Boys is playing into the VCTs with Cloud9 into the next challengers. So there you go, another 6-player roster that doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, but I mean, in the defense of that, Boys was originally a 6-man and has kind of been brought into their system. I don't want to speak to it, but he's clearly playing really well right now. But originally, right, he was a 6 on the roster. So I think, especially in Valorant, where you need these stack FPS fundamentals, but a lot of the really young, really skilled players, like in ranked, it didn't come from CS. They don't have it. I think if you have the staff and resources to kind of like coach these players, let them watch scrims, learn from more experienced players, and then slowly bring them in, it's a really good idea. I think we'll see more of that in the future.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I genuinely am looking forward to how, you know, I'm sure there are some teams that do this for non-nefarious reasons. Like there are reasons to do it. I just think in actuality and in reality, it doesn't play out that way, right? There always seems to be someone just, you know, off the roster. Like, fucking hell, I could have told you exactly how it would have gone when TSM brought Brax in. I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on here? They're trying to find out which boomer is the fucking imposter on this team. You know what I mean? Was it hazed in the library with the fucking candlestick? They were trying to figure something out, and then he heads back to T1, and they realize maybe 6-man roster isn't a thing. For all we know, that was the way it was always supposed to go. But it's outwardly, it just seems like them trying something and then, no, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to send this player back, get rid of him, whatever. David Dennis gave us an interview, but he was pretty safe with his answers. So it's kind of hard for us to glean anything from that whole back and forth with Brax. Motherfucker's got whiplash now, and they're fucking trying to strap him to a chair, get him to play Jet or some shit. Like, play the game.
At least he's fragging. At least he's fragging now.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's talk about NA. Yeah, we're going to start talking about NA now. So the most poached from team that I can remember in recent history, Noble, is disbanding. So they lose Leviathan, lose Zekken. Two very good players. Must be tough when you build up this team, which I mean, Payton, I think, was on Ghost for a time as well, right?
That's right.
So, yeah, I mean, a shame to see them disband. There's no, obviously, reasoning for that. But clearly, they either had a good idea of the right players to pick up, or they developed these guys into decent players. So it's a shame to see an org that has that capacity disband.
Yeah.
Or rather, a team.
To my knowledge, I think that they did leave on their own volition. I know that there's rumors of Levi going to TSM. He's on their Battlefy. I think it's almost confirmed at this point. First of all, I'm really happy that Levi's getting his opportunity. This guy has been grinding Valorant for a long time. He was playing with those EZ5 boys for a while before it was the current EZ5. He was doing really well. He has been like a Sova, like, I wouldn't want to call him a one trick because he plays Viper now too, but he's been like one of the best Sova players for me that's been on the market for a while. And I think it's kind of what TSM needs. But talking more about Noble, like, they had a lot of good players, but they just keep getting poached. Zekken was their IGL. I feel like kind of one of the centerpieces of this team. Then he goes on over to XSET, and then they bring in a bunch of people, but they really don't have that much time to play. Like, it felt like it was just kind of like clacked together, and they were doing all right at some of the Nerd Street events, but I don't think we ever really saw them do too much besides that game they beat over TSM. So I think it is on the player's own volition. I don't know what their decision is, like where they might be going, because I don't think they're signed to another org right now. So
no, I don't think so either. And I think that's it too. It's like at some point where you're trying to figure out the right formula, since Zekken left for XSET, right? And Levy comes in. Then you had, like, I think King was even playing at some point as well, before you had B-Dog, Payne, and all that, and all those players coming at the same time too. So you look at it as like, well, should we try to invest into continuing to cycle through more players? Sometimes an organization like Energy, for example, will have that money to be able to continue to cycle and trial and error and see how things work. But I don't think Noble is at that standpoint, kind of like what I guess Beast Coast was at before, and other teams that solely folded and left the scene for Valorant. It's sometimes the clock is ticking and you can't invest into that much anymore. So losing Leviathan is actually a pretty big piece as well. And would the new formulas actually work into the Noble? And maybe they didn't at that point. And unfortunately, that's where they have to say goodbye.
Yeah. No, I mean,
sorry. Go ahead, Adam. I'll just let you continue.
No, you can finish.
No, I was just gonna say real quick, or it's the fact that after they beat TSM, as Mimi was saying, is like, oh, are we strong enough to get a better representation than Noble right now, so that we could sign into a better org and start playing and compete at that high level again? Since we know we could beat TSM again, and we feel confident enough to beat any other team in North America to qualify, right? Is it their decision on that too, or is it just Noble that says we don't want to pay anymore?
Yeah, no, they've had really sweet players on that roster, and like even without Zekin, they did a ton of damage. Like that team's always looked good. I have a lot of respect for every player on that team, and I think I'm making complete assumptions. I have no idea what the budget looks like for Noble and what's going on, but I think if your budget is low, it's like you're stuck between either being like a supervillain for not letting really, really good players you end up having go, or you're like the farm team. And I think I'm not sure if that's what's going on. This is complete assumptions, but I think you can have a certain budget as an org to me and like be like, okay, I'm going to punch between the top 15 and top 25 range in this region. But if your budget's lower than that, it gets to be kind of hard to realize the sustainability. Yeah,
I've heard rumors of what these guys are getting paid. Like, it's not terrible. It's fine for like a tier 2 org, but it's not in line with, I think, the potential that some of the players have. So I'm not surprised, honestly, that they're choosing to leave, because I think there are other orgs out there that would definitely pay them a little bit more fairly for the work they're putting in. And I think kind of beating TSM might have been kind of the linchpin for that for them. They're like, we're clearly a top tier competitor. We have these amazing players. We can get something done. So I have a feeling they're probably just looking for that better option out there.
It's a really good team.
The only way that these orgs tend to, so the only way that someone like Noble tends to get to where someone like TSM is in the way back in the beginning, it was because there was no better offers for the players. It's both, there was loyalty to the brand, the org, the person that signed them, yada yada, right? But now that is very hard to do. It's very hard to take your tier 2 org and grow it into a tier 1 org without a lot of venture capital, a lot of capital in the first place, right? And then you risk being like I don't know, an alliance maybe who has a bunch of money and they're just burning it, right? You see the guild announced a $40 million loss this quarter. Now, they are an organization, by the way, that have like a bunch of really popular influencers as well on their roster. So that might have something to do with it. But you have to get your org to tier 1, you basically have to pay players more money than they're maybe you're justified in paying them, so that when that becomes justified, they stay with your team. It's really difficult operating a tier 2 team. You do risk, if you have a good structure, good coaching, you risk becoming a farm team or having your coaches poached and all that sort of stuff. It's an ecosystem, I think, that favors the teams that are well established, that have investors, that have that have money, right? They can get the players they want. They can stay at that level, and to take your team from here to here, you probably need a hoodwink, a non-endemic investor, to give you a bunch of money in like a investment rounds, and then use that to pay players. You know what I mean? It's not easy, because you just lose. Like, I get it. The players are like, fuck. I mean, now I'm worth this money. I'm gonna go and get that money that I don't get from this org, because they don't make the money, because we didn't make them the money. But now that we could make them the money, we're gonna make someone else the money because they already have the money.
Yeah.
Wait,
I mean, it's like, I think this phenomenon of like esports inflating really quickly for the sake of the long-term bet is just going to happen more and more, right? Valorant's the most recent big esport, and it's a safe bet, right? Like, this game is great. First of all, it's showing a lot of growth in a year of spectatorship for the the competitive scene. It's Riot. It's based on CS:GO. Like, I think for orgs with big money and big people who want to invest big and long term, you really can't go wrong. So I think it ends up being like quite the shark pond in the first year of being an esport.
All right, let's move on. Envy have said goodbye to Kaboose. If I said this in the pre-show, right, guys? If you had told me 3 months ago that Marved would be replacing Kaboose, I would have said you're fucking dreaming. That's this is one of what was he not on Together We Are Terrific initially?
Yes, the
right,
whole
with
original
like Akis
roster
and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only change that happened was Marv with Kaboose since this since this roster was formed since beta.
That's a moment of silence for Kaboose. Sorry, just to make it very clear.
Yeah, I thought somebody else was gonna. I'm always starting.
Fine,
Somebody else should go.
That's okay, man. No, it's fair. Sometimes I just want to ask a question and see if anyone has something to offer. But in this situation, right, Kaboose, we knew was doing a bit of this, bit of that, right? So we know he played, he played the Rays. I think at times, with Food on the team, like Food kind of played the Phoenix a lot of the time. Victor now as he is, fucking hell. So Kaboose played like a bunch of Rays, a bit of Omen as well. And it created like this weirdness where like he would swap when, we'd see like Mummy play Jet. Mummy liked to play Omen, and then Mummy played Astra once. And I'm starting to get really fucking confused. This roster's changed a lot since that original team, right? Especially with like the T1 editions and how they changed. But
yeah, I forgot about the Calypso too that was in quad actually. So
yeah, I mean the Abdo era, as we like to call it. Yeah. Good times. So I mean, what do you think about Kaboose's prospects going forward? I feel like he's still pretty well positioned to have an impact here on plenty of teams. But I'd like to get everyone's thoughts on sort of, let us do the pleb thing and compare him to Marv and think about maybe what NV lose and what NV gain by this sort of transaction.
I think what NV gain in Marv is just a more flexible player. I feel like Kaboose, like his agent pool was a lot more limited. Yeah, he's a great player, but I think NV just needed some kind of change. Like with this now, Mummy's upping now on the jet, which I love. I feel like he's always been such a strong opper. He was jetting there was like a slight period where he was, but he's kind of been in Omen jail for most of his life. And I know he didn't hate opping on that, but I feel like he looks a lot more free. Marv, maybe he's not like the guy you think of as like the big heavy hitter for a squad, but he's still a good, consistent player. He's a really strong controller player. And I think that it just adds a little bit more flexibility to the agent pool of this squad.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, I think Kaboose is an insane player. I think he would have done great there. I think he would do great anywhere. But I guess if you want to run your opera on Jet, makes sense to get an Omen player who's already been playing a bunch of Omen, and you've all already played with them. I think we're seeing a lot more one duelist comps, so there's competition for that spot. I'm willing to bet Kaboose could flex and play a ton of agents. I think he's an amazing player, but we've seen Food mess around with like Sky, and teams are running things like Jet Sky, and Jet's just the only duelist. And I guess maybe putting your Phoenix player on Sky I can see as a more comfortable transition than putting your like Raze player on Sky. So I think I think Kaboose is an incredible player, but I understand on paper these reasons for the change if they're the reasons.
First. And right now, like it's always been on the mind of Mummy that he wanted to op already for this team, right? And which is why he's opping Omen. They tried opping Raze on Split, for example, and on Bind. They tried opping Astra on fucking Ascent when it was the Astra meta. So it's clear night and day that the Mummy wants to op, and for him to do that to his best ability is to finally let him play that Jet, which is a good move. And if it comes down to now that the Jet dash has been sort of nerfed because she's now trapped again into the trapwire, and any other nerfs that could come out to Jet and the meta changes again, then Mummy has that opportunity as to how deep his agent pool is to flex into something else and still support the team based on the meta. So I think it's a good move like that. Nothing against Kaboose at that point too. But if you have to really switch over and try to get more out of one player with an operator because you need an op in your team, then you have to go with that choice. Now, the other thing too is Marv with the team is also a great second IGL player that's going to help out for the team. He's a great clutch player as well that could get those 2 versus 1, those 3 versus 1s to win. And look at where FaZe is right now without Marv IGLing for the team so far too. So this is a great addition, a loss for FaZe, but overall, a pretty big win here for Envy.
Okay. So Marv looked like we kind of spoke, I think, to Mike's last week, right? Talked about Marv. He came on my stream as well, and I sort of congratulated him, said they look really good. He's like, they're feeling great. Feel like Marv is really. Fuck you. I feel like Marv is settling in pretty well to the team there. So he always seemed like this kind of personality that was very you know, he felt really at home on FaZe Clan because of his demeanor, right? This NV team is maybe a little bit different. I think the architecture of this roster is definitely going to be different. Even, you know, in saying that, you know, we know that Troopy's added a lot of more depth to FaZe, but frankly, they're not delivering results right now. So it makes perfect sense. I thought he was the most. I think he and Zach were probably the most consistent. Zach grew consistent, wasn't always, you know, players on that FaZe roster. So, you know, it's good to see Mar find success. Here's an interesting one. So I think TSM is such a fascinating team to look at for so many reasons, because of the way they used to play, because of sort of the kind of coaches that have gone through their doors, right? We've had Tailored first, now Chet's here, players that have a lot of experience in Counter-Strike. And now it feels like they're definitely starting to get on board with the bring the Zoomers in kind of mentality, right? So I want to treat these two players maybe individually. So let's start with Leviathan, right? The more recent addition to this roster. He comes from Noble. So, I mean, it feels like a big loss for Noble. They lose Zek and Leviathan, like the two best players. Leviathan replaces Drone. What kind of player is Leviathan? He's a Sova player, right?
Yeah.
So
Sova, yeah.
They're looking for like a more consistent, like a hardcore Sova player, yeah?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like TSM was always like 17 duelist players on the roster, and it felt like they always, like, it worked early on with like Drone. I think there's a clip of it as well with Drone like always being a Phoenix player. It worked, but now the game has evolved and they've never really had someone to pick up the Sova. I said it earlier, but I think Levi is one of the best Sovas available right now. He is like pretty much invested his entire Valorant career into this agent. He has like a lineup for practically everything. And is also one of those like really fantastic like Ratty Odin players. He's also started playing Viper as of late. I think he's a strong Viper. I think he's just going to add some depth to TSM that they're really lacking. I don't know if TSM is going to be a top competitor still. I don't know about that. I'm still not really huffing the TSM copium. I don't think they're going to make it to closed, but who knows? Maybe they can impress. I love Levi. He's a great player. I really hope they can succeed.
He and Harmon seemed to me like the two best Sova candidates that weren't signed to top teams.
I think Critical as well.
Oh yeah, Critical.
Excuse me. Yeah. Oh yeah. Was he not on? No, he left NRG, didn't he? He was a free agent. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder what's happening in Critical anyway. As an aside, do we know anything about it?
right? I think.
Okay.
I have no idea what's happening.
Still free agent.
Critical, but he was playing.
Yeah, he's free agent.
BBG, and now he's just hanging out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Obviously, someone that has spent so much time on the one agent. So Leviathan comes in. We have Sabrosa kind of explaining TSM. I think this is in response, I think, to what people had been saying about TSM. So this is actually really interesting. I love everyone to watch this because Sabrosa is, you know, taking a break from missing results to kind of explain a little bit about the identity of his team and also maybe what they think that they're adding to the roster with Leviathan. So take a listen.
Okay, I'll tell you guys what happened with Drone and shit. Okay, so Drone is a really good Phoenix. Drone is a really good duelist, and I actually agree with Ryan when was it Ryan or Baby Bay that said like we are all duelists and shit. We were when we had Drone technically, because Drone is a really good Phoenix, but that was like one of the only agent he mastered when we first started playing Valorant. Is like he was at Phoenix like literally every map. Literally he was playing Phoenix on Split. I think he played Phoenix on Icebox too, and he was owning and it was working. But has Valorant added more agents and like people got insane with Silva? Like we just felt like we needed a good Silva. We needed an insane Silva. That it's just the meta like evolving. Like there's gonna be a KO coming in place, and like if you're not able to play those agents to fill out the comp, it's not Drone's fault. He's a duelist main. You know what I mean? Like if you put Taylor, if I have Drone on Phoenix, I will never replace him.
Phoenix is not exactly what every team needs right now. You know what I mean? Like, I think that you're speaking very complimentarily of Drone, but like, what does it mean if someone's just a great Phoenix? Like, what exactly does that do? I can't imagine too many teams right now that are going to be very happy with having someone that's just good at Phoenix. That doesn't seem like enough.
Yeah, and I think just having Leviathan to TSM is actually going to help that team just on one map already. I think Leviathan, the way that he played the wall bang and kind of like clapped TSM on Ascent, and TSM for me has always been pretty decent on Ascent in terms of like when Wardell could actually pop off with the operator. Now you also have one player that's just going to help lock out like A and B as Leviathan right there. So that he's definitely going to help into the map pool of like strengthening the defense that we needed from TSM on that map. And overall, as Mimi was saying, like if he's going to play other agents too, then you're starting to see a TSM that's going to be able to flex into different things. And even then, will we potentially even see Wardell play different agents too? Because that was something that Chet also mentioned, like when he came into our show like a month ago when he first was announced to the team, and what his plans were with TSM in the long run.
Yeah. Okay. Let's crack on a little bit here and talk about Bang, because he actually he was added a little bit earlier on here. And so Bang was added to, I mean, it was when Cutler left the team and Bang comes in, right? So obviously there's a shuffle happening internally, but when we see like a player who was playing mostly Sova get replaced with a duelist, we're going, the fuck, because we don't see the whole picture at the time. Right now we kind of understand what the plan was here. But let's, I think people are saying, I think here's a clip I want to show, and I want to get everyone's take on it. Maybe you can speak to this as well, Kaplan, but Baby Bay, for example, doesn't rate Bang. Let's have a look at this clip. He definitely had some thoughts about this. He was signed on June 29th, so it's been almost a month now. Let's see what the Smeagolord himself had to say as he passed judgment on a fellow duelist.
What it is with those guys. Trying to think like when I play against them.
I feel like their last pickup didn't make sense. They have like all of them are duelists. Like all the players are duelists to me.
I don't know why. I'm not gonna. I don't know why they picked up Bang. No offense. I think
Bang's nuts though. I think Bang's nuts, but I just feel like they already have like the.
Really? I don't even think he's that good.
I don't think he's that good, but like he's pretty good on duelist. He's not bad. I'm just like, I'm just trying to.
I'm sorry. I don't think he's good, bro. I really don't. I don't. I'm just gonna say it, bro. I don't think he's good.
Yeah.
Spicy.
Why? I mean, why do they not rate him? Is this just Baby Bay's typical bravado, or Bang is he's a young individual, right? So
yeah.
But he comes in as like a young player, a duelist, so automatically he has like the weight of the world and expectations on his shoulder. You know what I mean? On his shoulders, excuse me. Because of that, because people like Asuna and co have gone ahead of him and sort of set an expectation for these guys to be rule carry individuals. What do we know about Bang so far? I think we've had a chance to see TSM play, right?
I feel like it's too soon to say. I don't think they've even played on stream. Like they had that one game where they like stomped some like rando team in the way of Levitate, where the Levitate's coach was streaming. The Noble game wasn't streamed. Like they've played like basically one official. I think
because
it's
they lost
too
the
soon to pass
Noble,
judgment.
right?
Yeah.
And he's been a controller for the longest time. So,
but he never liked that. I think he said in an interview, like it was like Omen jail for him.
Yeah, but Open Jubbly was still pretty good, right? So I think even then, like you're now joining a team, you're putting him as a duelist. I think you're still trying to practice, like feel things out as a team. So maybe he doesn't look good when he was playing a Phoenix, I guess, and it wasn't streamed. Again, it wasn't streamed, but it is also Baby Bay. He probably plays ranked against them and stuff like that too. They probably scrim against each other as well, so they have a better idea of how Bang plays. But again, it also depends as to how Bang fits into the formula with what TSM's trying to build right now. It doesn't look good right now, but overall is going to look amazing once they figure out the right pieces as a core.
Yeah,
but we're not. Mimi, you said you're not sorry. I don't want to cut you off, Kaplan, but
no problem.
I mean, Mimi and others are not sort of sold about this TSM team's prospects. I think to get into the round of 16, they don't have to. I mean, I think Squirtle Squad is in that part of the bracket. There's Levitate rosters there. Like
Levitate and FBM, who I have no clue who that is. That's like no one that I've ever recognized. Like I want to see. Okay, so this is kind of an aside, kind of a bit of an off point, but like I've been whining about this constantly. That like the tier 1 teams don't play like open events. Like there's so many like 5Ks and 2.5Ks that are open every week that you can go and play and you can get that experience in officials, but they're just not. They play VCT and then they shit the bed like once every 3 months. Like I think like a roster like TSM, you can't justify just playing in VCT when you're not winning anything.
All right,
I think we talked about it too. They still can't play. So like and it still seems that they're not allowed. Yeah, so it's like inconsistent right now into what was happening, because right now TSM, like they still made it into like first strike whatnot, right? And maybe since 2021 they haven't been qualifying into like the master stage 1, 2, or 3. But somehow, I guess, depending on the orgs or whatnot, because again, I think it's unclear. But some of these teams that have made it to challenger stage. Sorry.
I thought the ruling was it was just if you made close that you couldn't. I guess it's all kind of up in the air, so we don't know.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not consistent right now. It's not consistent. It's as to somebody was talking about it. I think one of the pros was saying like, oh, I think it was FaceClan. They were saying like, to be fair, we still want to play everything to like try to qualify and get some reps in, but we just can't. Was it Infamous that said that? Yeah, Infamous was talking about that, replying to Sideshow and the others when they were talking about it too on their own show.
FaZe is one of the 9 teams not able to play in any smaller tournaments due to their Masters 1 qualification.
Oh, it's Masters 1, not close. That's right.
This is a Riot mandated restriction. And I tell you that because it's got a letterhead on the fucking piece of paper. Medium major tournaments have additional restrictions in place to ensure that smaller and less experienced teams have an opportunity to compete. So an example of a medium tournament is like the Summer Champs for NSG, right? So essentially, you can't sort of get involved in those, right? It's only for those medium tournaments are restricted to middle tier businesses and brands. So it's not. Yeah. So this is the tweet here. There are 10 teams in total. How many were in Masters 1? Not 10. I mean, look,
8.
He's not sharing exactly who it is.
Oh no, wait, Masters. Yeah, Masters 1 was 8, right? Wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah.
You said so. Infamous says 9 teams can't qualify, but TSM didn't make it to Masters 1.
Yeah, but they were like also the dominating team of like fucking 2020.
So they might have just gotten like especially cocked, right? It was just like, okay, Masters 1 and TSM can get screwed. That's probably what happened because he says 9. There was 8 in Masters 1.
So
yeah, right. Masters 1 and TSM possibly, yeah, potentially.
Unlucky.
So fucks LG as well because they didn't make Masters. I mean, Ballard tweets this in the thread. I mean, they haven't made it to challenges since stage 1.
Yeah,
since stage 1 this year, and they can't play in so many of these tournaments.
It's so
because they were in Masters 1 exactly.
What the fuck else are they supposed to play in then?
It puts teams in a really hard spot because if you try to like if you end up at a point because the game's changing so fast and growing so fast where you need to rebuild pieces or a lot of pieces to keep up, but then you have this position where you rebuild your roster and you can't play a single tournament or get any reps in as a team with a roster. And then you're in this 3-day open qualifier that's single limb. And it's like, oh, okay, are you good? Did you make the right move? And it's so punishing because on top of the, just getting the experience in game, like you have to get comfortable as a team in tournaments. You have to be relaxed in tournaments. You have to be confident. Like it's a very different atmosphere. Like we're grinding it out. And to be frank, I feel like we choke a lot of these games in these smaller tournaments by losing to ourselves because of our nerves. And the players are showing a lot of improvement, but like, if we just had no chance to do that, and then boom, huge Riot tournament that's like the whole season, it would be. I can't even imagine how difficult that would be.
Sonics, Renegades, Ghosts. That's why all these teams, like yours included, Kaplan, are on the come up because they can play tournaments, they can practice as a team. Like you cannot form a good team really if you can't play in events. Like even in like I want to make the parallel to CS where like. Yeah, the big teams don't play in smaller events, but that's because there's constant competition. Like, it's like Cologne right into ESL Pro League, right into like another, like there's constant play. Whereas for Valorant, it's like, fuck you get one best of 3, which is like your only chance. It's single a limb, which is, first of all, kind of sucks. And then, like, it just doesn't make sense.
So let's just be clear. We don't know for sure if TSM are one of the teams affected by this, right?
Yeah.
We don't know.
So. Nonetheless, but I feel, and to get back onto that topic, I feel like the ruling that came out of it is a little bit premature. I think I'm reiterating what others are saying in the like the feedback when this was talked about in a topic like 2-3 weeks ago, as to like it's a cool rule if it was like maybe like a franchise system already where okay, you're already a franchise, you're guaranteed to play X amount of games, your practice is going to come in right now, your salary, whatever, within that league, and why would you want to play into like an NSG monthly? But the other a good point in terms of the argument is that these teams could self-regulate themselves already into what tournaments they want to play and don't want to play, because we've already experienced that during the Ignition series and me trying to invite the teams during the event we shall not name, where they canceled and said, I don't want to play this anymore because we have like 5 Ignition series coming up at the same time or within the next like 3 months. we don't want to get burnt out. So I think teams already were doing a very good job self-regulating themselves on what tournament that they wanted to play in. And I think that should be allowed to be, that should come back to allow for them to play in these NSG monthlies if they want to. And also on top of that is that if they're going to play the NSG monthlies and they're actually winning them, then poor teams, unfortunately, that are always going to lose, but that's how you're going to practice and get better at the same time as well.
Yeah, I want to really highlight that, which is the concept of keeping these big teams out of these tournaments for the sake of letting smaller teams get a chance. It's that I don't think that's how it works. I don't think smaller teams are playing in these small tournaments to make the prize pools and help them make it. I think the big thing is getting, if you get a chance to upset a good team, that's how you make it in Valorant, and you need to
just fucking fast tracked.
And if you get big teams to play in these tournaments, it gives smaller teams more chances to get better and play them and to upset them. And it gives unsigned players chances to put up performances against good teams and then get signed because of it.
I had this once actually. They weren't even meaning anything by it, but I had some casters that were like technically, I guess, above me, just voluntarily opt not to cast an event because quote unquote they wanted it to be for like opportunities for up and comers. But I was at the mindset that I was already like at their level, and I was in reality, but I was just kind of offended. I'm like, excuse me, I don't fucking need this, mate. I want to go up against you, and I want to Cleveland steamer your ass on the fucking on LAN as a caster. Some casters treat it like it is like competitive, like it is being on a team. By the way, I'm one of them. So I didn't like that at all. I wanted them to be there. I wanted to fucking at the same event just smoke those fools. So I can see why for newer teams that they really want that experience. And yeah, like fucking hell, we were just talking about like these teams just forfeit like they're part of the 10K prize pool. Virtuoso and Easy 5. The money is not important. These guys, I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about our last roster move here because Kaplan's gonna go. We saw a rumor, I think, about sort of Andbox, who are still looking to find that success, is still making changes here. And we hear that sort of Thwifo of Fortnite fame, and of course previously of XSET was in negotiations there. It was rumored. See him on the roster now. So I mean, we're talking like Yay, Vice, JC Stani, Mata, Thwifo. I mean, you put this roster, in my opinion, you put this roster next to, I don't know, like NRG's roster, and I think both of these teams have got really talented players on them. This seems, this seems good. I mean, this is some footage back from when Thwifo was on XSET here. What are our thoughts of this edition, right? Andbox are a team, can I just be honest with you? As someone who's not as in the weeds, I've trying to understand them as a unit has kind of eluded me, especially with their changes lately. So I'd love to get, those that are maybe a bit more experienced with this new XSET lot or can speculate on what Thwifo would add to this team. I'd love to know.
I'm
not going to start.
I'll play it safe, but also honest here that I'm not sure. I think they're, him and Seb are both solid Sentinel players who seem to punch similar weight. And I think it's just got to be trying on a different fit for internal things. That's the only guess I can have. I mean, I trust the Andbox knows what they're doing. I think it's a strong team. I think the coaches are very good. And, I think both players are very good. So there's just got to be some intangible that I'm not aware of.
I don't see them putting them like a huge punch above what they were before. Like you say, Kaplan, it's kind of like a 1-for-1 trade. I think they're very similar players. I think that Andbox is a good team. Like I think they're solidly in like that like top maybe 12-ish. But like I don't think they're gonna be like winning in close squads. I think they'll probably make it to close with this squad, but I don't think they're gonna make it too deep with that. Like I mean maybe they'll change my mind, but I don't see this as like some big thing to overhaul the squad and suddenly make them some like god team.
Yeah. I mean, if I want to, I'm just literally comparing stats one by one too, like between how Seb plays, like because he's been playing a lot of Killjoy too. Steven. Yeah, a scoreboard guy, but he's been playing a lot of Killjoy as well for Seb in the past, right? For Andbox, where it started to, die down a bit. Maybe the direction of what's going on with KO and everything too is like, can we actually use a Killjoy more often? Do we want to get a Cypher into there? He's a pretty decent Cypher, but if you actually want to have somebody that's like established as a Cypher player, then I would definitely go with Thwifo at that point. Thwifo's, yes, as Adam mentioned, is still a pretty good Sentinels, which means you can play a lot more Killjoy. But I think right now we're getting a lot more value out of playing a Cypher than playing a Cage. I didn't want to go stat for stat and read everything out because you just called me out, Uber. So
no, I mean, no, obviously, you know, we on one hand we deal with intangibles that we can't always sort of tease out. On the other hand, we have stats that have a lot behind them. So like we really do what we can with those forms of speculation. So I think we've done just fine, you know, trying to pass this feeling out, you know. Kaplan, thanks for joining us, man. It's great to have your insight here and talking about all these roster moves, especially, you know, what's going on in Europe and stuff, man. So I appreciate your time, mate, as always.
Yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. I always like talking about Europe because I'm safe to make, you know, hotter takes without getting all messy in my own region and my own scene. And it's always fun. I hope to be back soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for joining us, man. Catch you later on. Remember, everybody, you can follow Kaplan on Twitter at itsKaplan, and you should check out the No Cap podcast because he gets a bunch of really knowledgeable guests on there, and they go a bit more in the weeds than we do. We're kind of like the TMZ version of Valorant.
Yeah, we get into it. It's a little inconsistent in schedule. It's tough to be a coach and kind of make it work, but when I release episodes, I release them, and you can find it in my Twitter bio or youtube.com/itsKaplan.
Hell yeah.
All right, mate. Thanks for joining us, Kaplan. Have a good one, and good luck, obviously, with your next VCT run.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Adam. Good luck, man.
See ya.
Okay. So that was obviously a ton of roster moves to work through. A lot of speculation, as there always sort of is at this part of the year. But we do have a chance to look back fondly over a tournament that happened on the weekend, whose concept I love. I think this is fantastic because for me, it's like a mix of World Cup and collegiate esports, right? Two of my favorite sort of concepts that, you know, that I've sort of been a part of in my time in esports here. From start to finish, like the event looked great. Obviously, you know, Red Bull getting involved at this level is great to see. The production value looks great. The broadcast team looks excellent. Let's talk about Campus Clutch. Let's bring up the bracket here, and Vans, you can talk us through your experience of the weekend because you're still in Spain right now.
Yeah, man, it was super cool, actually. If you want to look at the whole, like, I guess, umbrella view of the Rebel Campus Clutch is a bunch of university students from all around the world, right? You have to form a team of 5 within your own region. So as you were talking about your era, Uber, it's my era as well as the World Cyber Games. It felt like it was that as well. You're playing to represent your country. You're qualifying regionally. You had to play through the knockout stages in the finals to defeat your opponents in the regions finals. Just like World Cyber Games. And then if you actually won, then you came here into the grand finals in Spain. So it turns out to have 12 university teams from around the world competing head-to-head. And it was actually a winner-take-all format. So there was no second place, no third place, no fourth place. It was 20,000 euro for the first place team. The trophy, I think they also had an opportunity to now fly to Masters 3 to learn what it's like into like the pro scene once we're going to get that stage into Masters 3, if we're able to, of course, with COVID and everything like that as well. Sure. And I think there's also an opportunity for Red Bull to help out your university in your region to build like a Red Bull campus experience of like a training area and a practice zone, which is really damn cool. But overall, like to see, you know, an Egyptian team out of like a team that qualified from Canada, USA, Europe, and you're like, and Korea on top of that, and holy shit, we have a Middle Eastern team that's like the best team in the world in the university scene. So that's fucking cool. And then the rumors of one player now being picked up by Vitality. You had Truro that actually got picked up by Immortals, which is why he couldn't play into the into this event here for the Campus Clutch. One of the players for South Korea is Kelly. Kelly was a Jet player for Dam1 Gaming that almost beat Newturn to qualify into Reykjavik. And his roster before that was playing with everybody else from the original roster that then became Newturn. So it's like there was actually some good skills into that, and it's great that Red Bull was able to create that and put the tier 2 university teams prospects onto like the spotlight so that they could eventually get like a great career into esports after.
I mean, this reminds me of like Heroes of the Dorm in HOTS kind of feel. Just looks really professional. Obviously live events are awesome. You've got people there like so it was not a live audience, it's the other teams that are sat around out there. Yeah.
So the cool thing about this too is because of the COVID protocols is that we tried to bubble as much as we could. So the players stuck together, the talent stuck together, and then you actually had an open, a public that was actually on the balcony upstairs that had no access to the players and no access to the talent. So that was pretty cool in that sense. So we actually did have a crowd, just a lot smaller. I couldn't hear him because it was higher up into the balconies, but there was definitely a crowd. So it was actually pretty cool.
Did it feel like casting land? Did it have that, you talked about the lanes you've done in the past. Did it kind of remind you of the good old days?
Yeah, so it reminded me of the good old days into a feel of what it still was in the good old days, was like when you were at the peak of esports back when I was doing it in the golden days of my 2005 era. Then the crowd that was there was only like 100, 200 people, which was huge for me back then. But it's not at the stage of where it's like a thundering 14,000 people in an arena like you had here, Mitch. But it was still it was still a great feeling. I got to cast with DDK as well, so to be able to cast with one of the greats that's been doing it for years, and a guy that's been working on his craft into casting for years, and I've been doing it for years, and to try to get that experience back was fucking super cool. So it gave me that drive even more than I had right now. So as much as you want to compete, Uber, I want to compete as well. So Mimi, like you gotta work harder. Let's bring it up. Let's fucking do it.
Let's meet at LAN.
It just makes me hyped.
Nerds at the top.
I feel like this event, like, it felt more like a LAN than Masters did to me, right? Like, you had the player cams, you had like the reactions and the replays, like it felt real, man. Like, this is just, it feels like what Valorant should be. I'm glad the university scene is getting something good. I think the university scene in like CS was always like there, but it was never really anything big, and I'm just glad it's getting support, because I feel like it's such a good like incubator for talent, like you talked about. People are already getting signed.
And sorry, I want to add it as well too, like, the Campus Clutch was a great opportunity for university players for playing Valorant, but it was also a great opportunity for casters as well, because we had like a mix of like different casters and analysts coming into this as well, because Ryan Central was here to replace, unfortunately, Sully that couldn't make it, but Upmine, who's been grinding for like the longest time in like the tier 2 scene of casting, and able to now do VCTs in the group stages or whatnot, but to still be able to give him the experience of what it's like to cast in a LAN, and to mix it with more experienced casters like DDK, so that he could actually study a bit of how DDK works, like in a LAN environment and stuff like that too. Jess Goat, that comes from Rainbow Six, it gives her like the reps into that as well. Ian Chambers, like it had a good mix of everything, where everybody could learn from everyone, from players to talent, and it was just like a fucking great experience.
Yeah, it looked like a great event. So tell me, is there going to be one next year? Is this, we're going to get more of these events? Because this is sick. I love the concept. So
and they actually called that at the end of the show. So like Red Bull announced at the end of the show that there was going to be a 2022 circuit next year. So that's pretty fucking cool. So it's going to be in the works, of course, because it just finished 2021 today, or before yesterday. And now it's time to go back to the drawing board, get some feedback, because they asked the talent as well. I think Red Bull is as cool as Riot in terms of like, what can we do that can make it better for next year?
I mean, your hotel room looks good, man. I've been in way worse ones than that, dude. I'm telling you. I've been in some fucking shockers in my time. That one, it's one of them kind of artsy fartsy one with the bed in the middle of the room on like this little island, and sort of like open dope. Plan. Yeah,
pretty
dope.
Dope.
Got like the open bathroom. Like you see the tilt the camera to the left, the piss Daniel off. Just give me a little bit of a tour. This is what, ladies and gentlemen, this is an example of what Red Bull Gaming gives casters at their events. Now, if you're a tournament organizer and you're thinking of putting us in a hostel or a Scandia, don't do that. Instead, send us to places like this with a fucking Five Guys across the road and lots of friendly Spaniards on the street below. That is going to be, I'd like to see that incorporated in every standard caster contract, along with the rider that says only green M&Ms.
The Five Guys clause.
Yeah. Five Guys, exactly. That looks great, man. No, I'm glad you got to fucking. Just for those that don't know, Vans has been working his dick off at home. His missus is across the world from him, and my guy's been busting his ass, covering Valorant from his fucking room where he has to block. He can't even get out the room. He has to block the door with the couch. He literally trapped himself in his room. So, I'm glad
I'm
for you
that
you get out. You get to go and travel, man, and look like a great event.
Thanks,
so
man.
you deserve it, dude. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And more to come. And then honestly, like, and I'll make it public right now as too. I fucking love the fact that Mimi's up here right now too, because for me, she's one of the examples that where I see myself when I first started as well. That continue with that grind, and I think you'll be able to make it up there as well.
Oh, thank you.
Dad, this is fucking weird. We're so positive on this show. This is not really.
Yeah, what the fuck, man? Fuck you, Uber.
What's going on?
Fucking close this shit.
Weird. That is. You guys want us to talk about Shroud and VCT? No. How about that? Fuck him. All right, everybody. Great to be here. We're going to see you guys next Tuesday, 11 a.m. PT. We're going to be talking about how the VCT stuff's been sort of unraveling. We're going to probably talk a lot about Europe because that's already in full swing. So stick around for that.
Yeah.
Mimi Gaming, thanks for joining us on the show today. What's coming up for you?
VCT Thursday. Me and Tanner are casting the open quals, so that should be exciting for NA. Yeah.
Very good. Looking forward to seeing
And then Summer
that.
Champs actually, they're like in 40 minutes. So if you want some tier 2 Valorant, that's coming up right after this.
There you go.
Sheesh. All right, there you go. So if you're sick of watching EU, I think XL are getting battered right now, so don't worry about it. Fuck XL.
Yeah, tier 2 NA, EU, same thing.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks
shit.
for joining us. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tolerating our bullshit. We'll see you next Tuesday. Bye for now.